Hello and good Thursday morning to each of you who are joining us right now. Thank you for joining me for News Nation Streaming. If you've joined us before, then you know how this goes. But if this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for watching and sampling us. On behalf of the entire team, I'd like to extend to you News Nation welcome in the healthiest form, wherever you call home. We are your place for all breaking news and things that are developing, presenting an opportunity for extended coverage of developing stories as well. I'm Nick Smith. Now, there are a number of things we're watching in our nation's capital, overseas, in New York, along the West Coast, the Southeast, and of course, the Midwest. New this morning, the White House responding to the tariff ruling. The U.S. Court of International Trade said the president had overstepped his authority in imposing his reciprocal tariffs globally, as well as levies on Canada and Mexico. The ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade delivered an early yet significant setback for Mr. Trump, undercutting his primary leverage as he looks to pressure other nations into striking trade deals more beneficial to the United States. The White House spokesman Kush Desai, in a statement to News Nation, read in part, said foreign countries' non-reciprocal treatment of the United States has fueled America's historic and persistent trade deficits. These deficits have created a national emergency that has decimated American communities, left our workers behind, and weakened our defense industrial base. Facts that the court did not dispute. It is not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. President Trump pledged to put America first, and the administration is committed to using every lever of executive power to address this crisis and restore American greatness. The tariffs and their impact appear to have made their way to the country's economic forecast. The U.S. economy shrank at 0.2%. Annual pace from January through March. Now, the first drop in 3 years. First quarter growth was brought down by a surge in imports as companies in the United States hurried to bring in foreign goods before the president imposed massive import taxes. The January-March drop in gross domestic product, the nation's output of goods and services, reversed a 2.4% gain in the fourth quarter of 2024. Imports grew at 42.6%. Fastest since third quarter of 2020 and shaved more than 5 percentage points off the GDP growth. Now, consumer spending also slowed sharply, and federal government spending fell at 4.6% annual pace, the biggest drop in 3 years. But we begin this morning in Washington, where Trump border czar Tom Homan just spoke with White House reporters about ICE and their mission. The Trump administration has led a robust crackdown on illegal immigration since returning to the White House this year. According to numbers released by ICE sent to News Nation, during the first 100 days of Trump's second term, ICE arrested 66,463 illegal immigrants and removed 65,006 immigrants involved someone accused of committing a crime. Here are his remarks moments ago.
Extremely important. I mean, I hope most Americans agree that public safety threats and national security threats shouldn't be walking the streets of this country, especially here illegally. So yeah, we like all the support we can get. I think we got the support of the majority of American people, according to the polls, right?
Stephen Miller told ICE officials that they need to be arresting 3,000 people a day. How soon do you expect that can actually happen? Is that enough?
Look, I've said from day one, you guys ask me this question a lot of times, am I happy with the removal numbers, or happy with the arrest numbers? And I've been fair with you. I said the numbers are better than Biden, but they're not good enough. I said I'm not satisfied with the numbers, so we need to increase. I mean, you look at the recent numbers, we've got like 600,000 illegal aliens walking the streets of this country with criminal convictions or pending criminal charges. So yeah, we need to do more. President Trump made a promise to the American people. The American people put him in office on this top issue was immigration enforcement. So yeah, I have not been satisfied with the numbers. Kristi Noem, Steve Miller, myself, we all want more numbers. So we've increased the teams a lot. We're increased targeting a lot. So we expect a fast increase in number of arrests every day.
DHS says that assaults on ICE officers are up over 400%. Does that track with what you see? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, the assaults on ICE officers are high. The doxing of ICE officers are at an all-time high. And people always complain, some of you here say, why are they wearing masks? Because they're trying to protect themselves and their families. They got a dangerous job to do, and they're being doxxed every day across this country. I've experienced myself 100 times, but I'm willing to take that because of the position I hold. And we're not running a popularity contest. We're trying to enforce the laws enacted by Congress, doing it in a smart, effective way. So yeah, the results are up, but it won't be tolerated. We've already shown you put a hands on an ICE officer, you can be prosecuted to the highest extent of the law. So we're not playing with that with any threats against ICE officers. Doxing, we're going to look at doxing. We're going to take action on that also. Anything else?
What kind of numbers do you have for self-deportations?
The last number I saw was right around 8,500. As far as the CBP home app, there's thousands of deportations where they're not going through the app, they're just leaving. Intelligence reports showing traffic going south, not only through Mexico, but even the Darien Gap. So there's a lot of self-deportation. I hope they take advantage of it because, they can leave on their own terms, get their affairs together, or we can go find them and formally deport them, which is going to set a bar against them coming back to the country under a legal program. So they should self-deport, give themselves an opportunity, maybe in the future, to come back as a visitor or a tourist, or maybe they have a U.S. citizen child that can petition for them. But if we have to formally go through the process of seeking them out and formally deporting them, there's a statutory bar placed against them from ever coming back to the country.
Do you expect, though, that those numbers will be higher, given the policy?
I think that as they see the ICE arrests in the interior increase, which is going to see a vast increase in arrests, I think they're going to realize we can do this under ICE control. We can arrest you at a place and remove you, or you can take it upon yourself to work with ICE, get your arrangements in order, whether it's your home, your belongings, your family, and leave on your own. We'll give you a plane flight. We'll give you some money, or we can just go through the ICE process. I think the more they see ICE out there in the streets arresting people and holding them accountable, the more they'll take advantage of doing the right thing.
And one more question. Which countries of the crossings that are still happening, where are these migrants mostly coming from? Is it still Central America, or is it
Right now, it's a lot of Mexican nationals.
Part of Elon Musk's scheme was finding thousands of people using the same Social Security number. Is there no way to stop the flow to them so they'll self-report?
I can't hear the question.
Part of Elon Musk's scheme found that thousands of people were using the same Social Security number. So one of the main reasons they're able to work is they're using false Social Security numbers. Is there no way to stop the money flow to cause them, if they don't have a job, they'll be unemployed?
We're all over that. We're all over the mysteries numbers, and we're tracking that. And that actually comes up, provides a lot of leads for us to go find these people.
Mr. Holler, what's the reason why ICE is apparently targeting Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket? You can assure us that is not political.
Say that again?
Apparently there's been a lot of ICE activity yesterday in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Can you confirm that? Or is that being done for any political reason?
No, here's nothing off the table. It's part of the country. We're doing immigration actions throughout the country. We're not saying we're going to favor one area over another. We're all over the country, in every neighborhood, in every city, and you're going to see an expansion of that. Like I just said, we're going to increase the teams greatly. So you're going to see more teams on the streets you've never seen before. You're going to see more worksite enforcement than you've ever seen in the history of this nation. You got sanctuary cities, how I said, we're going to flood the zone. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, one agent arrests a bad guy in the jail in the safety and security of the jail, which is safer for the officer, safer for the alien, and safer for the community, okay, you're going to force him in the community to find him. If we can't find him in the community, we're going to find him at the work site. So we're going to flood the zone, and sanctuary cities will get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the neighborhoods, more worksite enforcement, because we're going to get the bad guy. If you want to make it difficult for us, we'll do it. It'll take more time, it's less efficient, but we're not going to stop until we find that guy.
And so is that just sort of a general sweep of the tourist businesses and whatever businesses there are in Nantucket? Or
There is no sanctuary for illegal aliens in this country. You can call it a sanctuary jurisdiction all you want. It's a bunch of crap, and we all know it. Sanctuary jurisdiction says, well, we want to protect the immigrant community. We want them, the victims and witnesses of a crime, to be able to come to the police, report a crime without fear that we're working with ICE. That is a bunch of garbage. Because victims and witnesses of crime don't want the bad guy in their neighborhood either. They want us in the jail arresting that bad guy. It'll be made much easier, much more efficient. But because they're forcing in the neighborhoods, more non-criminal targets are being arrested because ICE agents are not going to walk away from illegal alien. You force us to go find a bad guy. Many times we're with others. At a work site, go look for the bad guy. There's 10 more illegal aliens there. They're coming too. So I don't want to hear sanctuary cities complaining, well, look at all these collateral arrests and non-criminal targets are arrested. You forced me in that position? So we're going to force law. Unlike the last administration, Secretary Mayorkas told ICE, you can't enforce immigration law. If they're not convicted of a serious crime, you can't arrest them for just being here illegally. That sent a message to the entire world. You can enter this country illegally, which is a crime, but as long as you never get convicted of a serious crime, you're free. No one's looking for you. Game's changed. We got the greatest president in history of this nation sitting in the Oval Office who's going to enforce immigration law and keep his promise to American people to make this country safe again.
Can you just talk quickly about the social media accounts that the Department of Homeland Security used those for information? The scrutiny of social media accounts that one's speech students are now being subjected to. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why you're doing that now?
Look, we look at a lot of different ways to find people we need to find, whether it's a criminal history, immigration history, social media, undercover operations, surveillance. There's a whole myriad of law enforcement systems we use to find people and see if people are a danger to the community. Social media is one of them, and we'll continue to use it. We don't arrest anybody for free speech. I mean, free speech is legal, but there's a limit to that too. I can't look at you and make a comment about my desire to assassinate a president. Is that not free speech, or is that a crime? I can't sit in a movie theater and yell fire and watch people get trampled to death. Is that free speech, or is it a crime? There's a limit to free speech, but we're not arresting people based on free speech. It's what they said plus what they did.
Thank you.
Well, you heard him. There is a limit to free speech. That, of course, was Tom Homan, border czar, saying he's not happy with the current removal numbers, saying, quote, I am happy that there are removal numbers. They're better than Biden, but they're not good enough. So, yeah, we need to do more. I've not been satisfied with the numbers. So we've increased our teams a lot, and we've increased targeting a lot. So we expect a fast increase of arrests every day. Also went on to say you're going to see more teams on the streets than you've ever seen before. And he also mentioned to reporters that there is no sanctuary for any illegal aliens in this country. You're going to call it a sanctuary jurisdiction all you want. It's just a bunch of crap, because we will come after you. Homan on ICE officers being assaulted. He said, quote, assault on ICE officers are a lot. We're not doing a popularity contest. We're enforcing the law. We, of course, are watching other news this morning, and I want to take you to our nation's capital. A week after a shooting claimed the lives of 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy, the Capitol Jewish Museum is reopening today. Last Wednesday, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, a couple about to be engaged, were fatally shot while leaving an event at the museum. According to court documents, the event was hosted by the American Jewish Committee to bring together Jewish young professionals and the D.C. diplomatic community, and was attended by several members of the U.S.-based Israeli diplomatic mission. Let's go there live, where D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is making remarks right now.
I see so many leaders gathered here today, and I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for your good ideas.
Museum.
We are.
Right now. Great. Oh, it's on you.
Just
Just coming from different places in the world and different places in the city can talk about important ideas and ways that we move together for a better collective future. That's part of why my administration has been committed to providing grants to institutions like this one, and we will stay focused. Unfortunately, that work is not done. And how we can continue to provide that support going forward. While I am saddened by the circumstances, outraged actually, that bring us together today, I am grateful to look around and see the values of our city represented here and the resiliency that we heard described in getting open. So it sounds like, you know, part of my charge to my team in every difficult circumstance is that we have to get open. We have to get open. We have to get back to normal. We have to allow people to come to work. We have to allow people to grieve. We have to allow people to talk. And we have to live our missions. So thank you for getting open.
It's an honor to be up here with my colleagues and to be with all of you here today as one of the senior clergy at Addis Israel. It is a gift to be, as the mayor said, reopening the doors of this important museum. The psalmist says in Psalm 147, Harofei lisvorei lev, hamechabesh le'atzvotam, healer of the brokenhearted, binder of our wounds, be with us in our anguish. Help us to transform the darkness to light. 1 week ago, anti-Semitic rage took two of the brightest lights from us, Sarah and Yaron. Sarah, a lover of nature, of animals, committed to peace, diplomacy, building bridges, and seeking to cultivate empathy in the world. And her beloved, Yaron, born in Israel, knowing at a young age that he wanted to be a diplomat, a master of languages with a deep desire to build bridges across cultures. They were beloved to their families, to their friends, to their community, and each of them is a world that was taken from us. So how do we transition from this tragedy to reopening the doors of this museum today, to the staff, to the board, to the security team of this awesome museum? This reopening is exactly what our city, our country, and our world needs to keep telling our stories. Who we are as a people, to have us be known, what our values are, what we are to the city, what we contribute, and the intricacies of what make us who we are, not only so that we don't shrink from fear, but also because it is the path to better understanding each other. Hafachta mispidi l'macholi, petachti saki v'tazreinu simcha. Through our storytelling, may we turn our lament into building bridges and once again to find.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We always begin with Almighty God's name. We call upon Almighty God, the merciful, the wise, the most high possessor of greatness. We're talking about the same God for all of us, who created us all from the wombs of our mothers and cares for us all equally, just like a mother. We humbly today, we ask for God's divine benevolence on all of those gathered here for this reopening. A very wonderful moment for us in history as we are seeing the human resolve continue to move forth after it's been closed from the devastating shooting and killing of a young man and a young woman and even more so than that, 2 members of the human family. Not just the Jewish community and the D.C. community, but the human family. So we offer our deep condolences to all the families of those innocent lives taken, and also those that were shaken and are left void as we're here today. May they find comfort in God's presence and promise. Our prophet taught us, and he lived, that we are never to take the life of the innocent, not even the life of a combatant prisoner, so certainly not the life of an innocent non-combatant. And God reminds us in our scripture that to kill a single life unjustly is as though you've killed the whole of humanity. This enormous value and sacredness of human life should be caution enough to prevent cruel, senseless, inhumane acts of violence and killings. Understand that it doesn't matter who an attacker or attackers are or what they claim. Their actions are criminal, inhumane, and not condoned in neither Islam, Christianity, Judaism, or other beautiful faith communities. Any person, no matter how desperate their situation, no matter how much their hearts are paining because of real or perceived wrong that has been done to them, there is no justification for them to murder and make helpless, vulnerable, or innocent humans the target of their terror, their hate, or their violence. We pray that we value God's mercy, his creation, and God's ways, being mindful that God does not want us to be cruel to each other, nor to be the victim of cruelty, but to treat all humans as a sacred creation of the Almighty Creator. This opening today, highlighting the history of the Jewish community here in the District of Columbia, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to embrace our shared original identity as fruits of the first human, Adam, from which came the many wonderful, beautiful, diverse expressions of human life that have contributed to the strength and beauty of our nation, e pluribus unum. We are all under one roof, the sky. And the natural order of life is driving us as we're here today to work together, for there is no path to peace. As our board of director, Chris, said, no path to peace. Peace is the path, and it's the hope of every human soul. May we all be a credit to our race, the human race, and as this invitation says, to value our intrinsic nature to live together intelligently and peacefully in the spirit of universal kinship, working to build bridges of faith over fear, hope over despair, love over hate, and peace over violence.
Thank you for allowing us to stand with you in this moment of grief and resolve. The more we learn about Yaron and Sarah, the greater our collective grief, and that their beautiful, purposeful lives met such a violent end, and that their families and friends, their co-workers and allies committed to peace and goodwill will not only forever mourn and miss them, we all must wonder how the world could have been had their lives not ended so. So I will just briefly offer a prayer. Gracious and merciful God of all, we are here. We are here in great sorrow to consecrate this place as a memorial to Yaron and Sarah, and in common cause, to commit to the work to which they felt called. May we all do our part to rid our communities of hatred and violence. Help us to see one another with your eyes, and to live in hope of that day when there will be peace in this and every land, and that no one need live in fear. Until that day, Help us to do all that we can to protect and cherish life, create sanctuaries of peace and safety, and serve the good of all. May your tender mercy surround those who grieve, not only be a blessing, but a source of inspiration to us all. In your name, amen.
Dr. Gerwitz, Chairman Wolf, thank you. Thank you for reopening these doors. Thank you, Mayor Bowser and members of DC Council, for your leadership and determination to fight hate, protect our values, and declaring that hate has no place in Washington, D.C. This museum stands today as more than bricks and glass. It's a reminder that history must be remembered, that stories must be told, and that communities must be protected. The reopening is more than a ceremony, an act of hope, a declaration that memory matters, that culture still endures, and that justice is still worth pursuing. In moments of grief and trial, the strength of this city, and DC math, 8 equals 1. Many face equal 1. And our strength has always been found in its people. Faith leaders, the mayors interfaith councils, civic leaders, neighbors, shoulder to shoulder. Different voices, but one purpose. We are one city, Washington, D.C. And we are at our best when we show up for each other. When knocked down 2 times, you get up a 3rd time. And we not only show up for each other, we will speak out together. And when we move forward, not as scattered strangers, but as one people, bound by a common calling to repair the world. And as the prophet Isaiah declared, you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets to dwell in. Let us live up. Let us lean in to that call, and let's do it together.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the museum for allowing me to briefly talk about my friendship with Sarah Milgram. From the very first moment that I met Sarah, I knew that she was a special person. Her warmth and her smile could light up any room. When we first met a couple years ago, I knew that I had met a true mensch, someone who embodied integrity, kindness, and a deep sense of purpose. Over the years, we have had the privilege of partnering on several events together, focused on pride and LGBTQ inclusion. Sarah wasn't just a colleague in that work, she was a passionate advocate. She made it her mission to ensure that LGBTQ voices were heard and celebrated within our local Jewish community. Her advocacy was deeply rooted in her values and her unwavering belief in dignity for all. I will always remember Sarah for how she made space for everyone, whether it was the LGBTQ community, women, or people of color. Sarah always made sure that there was space at the table. She made people feel seen, valued, and embraced. As we heard from many over the reflections of the last week, we know that Sarah was a true public servant. She approached her work not just as a job, but as a calling. She was a peace builder in the truest sense, someone who lived out our values, our Jewish values of tikkun olam, or repairing the world. She did this both in her professional life and in the way she treated everyone around her. This tragedy is even more painful by the loss of her beloved Yaron. Sarah and Yaron were to be engaged this week in Israel and looked forward to building a future together. Our hearts continue to be with their families and their loved ones, for our colleagues at the Israeli embassy, and for all of us who saw in them a future that was bright. Their lives were intertwined in love, service, and the shared vision of peace, and now they are together in memory. Even in this deep grief, we hold on to the light that Sarah and Yaron shared freely. Their warmth, their commitment, and the love that they spread through community and connection, that is what they stood for, and that is what we must carry forward. And so as I close, I would like to share this prayer of peace and healing written by Nancy Kriesman. To the one who blessed our ancestors and the one who blesses all beings here on this earth, bless all those who are suffering the grief of someone they loved. May they find solace in their memory, and may their love find a resting place in their hearts. May they have patience and strength, as grief can come in waves throughout their lives. May they find the courage to share their grief with others, no matter how many years have gone by. While they can be shattered by loss, they can be healed by the love from others. Sacred One, help them find ways to open their hearts to love and to hope. Bless all those who are grieving, for it is an honor to have lived. Make both life and death a blessing. Amen. The Sarah and Yaron were taken from us at this museum that we heard is meant to celebrate our shared heritage. We must not let that act dim the light of what this museum represents, which is a testament to Jewish resilience, a place to tell all of our stories, and a beacon of hope for our Jewish community. May the memories of Sarah and Yaron be a blessing. May we find strength in each other as we honor their lives, and may their legacy inspire us to keep building a more compassionate and inclusive world.
I'm Nick Smith. We're watching live remarks at the Capitol Museum, reopening today, a little more than a week after two Israeli embassy staffers were fatally shot outside its doors. We will return to those remarks after a short break. Welcome back. I'm Nick Smith. You're watching News Nation Streaming. We have been following the live remarks happening at the Capitol Jewish Museum, reopening today, a little more than a week after 2 Israeli embassy staffers were fatally shot outside its doors. The messages have been consistent that they are one community, and other faith leaders have joined in the celebration of reopening of the museum. Let's go back to those remarks happening live right now.
It was dark. It was wet. I'm 67 years old, and I didn't want to slip on the pavement. I didn't think for a minute. Well, I thought to myself, here I am again, by myself, in the dark, walking down a dark street in D.C., going to a pretty empty parking garage. And I thought to myself, well, I didn't think I'd get shot because I was Jewish. I did think the possibility exists that I would get mugged. I was probably not a good target in retrospect. I've got gray hair, and I was alone. Why shoot one person when you can shoot more? I may have walked past the shooter. I don't know because I was looking at my feet. 6 minutes after I passed that spot, 2 people were dead. It could have been me. By standing up today, we honor the memories of Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky, 2 beautiful souls who believed in bridge building and a better future. One thing I will remember about Sarah, and if you watched the funeral, you probably would have noticed this too, that every time she had a choice in her life or made a decision, she always chose hope. She was committed to peace building and passionate about sustainability and people-to-people relations. She traveled with AJC on a fellowship where she joined other American, Israeli, French, and Moroccan leaders focused on advancing relations in the Middle East and North Africa. Yaron always had a smile on his face and a welcoming presence. He was passionate, he was intelligent, he was a hard worker and always willing to go the extra mile. And before he left the museum that night, he shared how excited he was to be going back home to spend the Jewish holiday of Shavuot with his family in Israel. And as Josh mentioned, he had bought a ring and was planning to propose to Sarah. It's a beautiful love story with a very unhappy ending. May their memories be a blessing.
Good morning. I'm Bea Gerwitz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lillian and Albert Small Capitol Jewish Museum. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for being here with us to remember Sarah and Yaron, to support the Jewish community, and to stand with us as we rededicate ourselves to the important work of the museum. I specifically want to thank Mayor Bowser, Police Chief Smith, Councilmember Allen, and all the first responders in the room for your support over this past week. And in this room today, in case you were wondering, we feel the embrace of so many overlapping communities: our closest neighbors, our museum colleagues, our Jewish community, our interfaith community. The outpouring of support from all of you has strengthened our whole team. In the past week, we have come to know Sarah and Yaron through their friends, families, coworkers, and then the many remarks today. Today, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your tributes with us, even as you are grieving. I have come to learn that Sarah and Yaron represented the best of us, pursuing the peace that we all yearn for. Through their work at the Israeli embassy and their connections with the local Jewish community, they wanted to bring forward a better future. They collaborated with other Jewish groups, synagogues, and leaders in the region to strengthen our community. For example, just last week, as we heard a little, Sarah was helping to coordinate activities related to World Pride in DC. Their story was part of DC's Jewish story, and therefore part of the museum's story. We are interested here in all facets of Jewish life in the region, from Jewish baseball teams to political buttons to board meeting notes. But as a Jewish museum focused on Washington, D.C., we have a special interest in the ways people come to D.C. to change the world. So many young people like Sarah and Yaron arrive in our nation's capital from across the globe, ready to get down to work for us all. They want to make a difference, build bridges, work in diplomacy. They organize marches, they lobby their representatives. They go to mixers, happy hours, and networking receptions to meet other young people and to build community. These are Jewish stories representing Jewish lives, and they need to be told, deserve to be shared, and we, as a museum, are taking up that unique responsibility. We always hope that the stories we tell in this museum will continue to inspire our visitors to find their own way forward. Through our exhibits and programming, we strive to build connections, identify points of commonality, encourage civic engagement, and always educate the public about the richness, diversity, and vibrancy of Jewish life. That work will not stop. Last week's anti-Semitic attack cannot be our last chapter. So we reopen today, and we dedicate ourselves to honor Yaron and Sarah and their commitment to repairing the world and building bridges. And we take strength in all of you as we go forward in fulfilling that mission. Thank you for being in community with one another this morning. We look forward to welcoming you back many, many times.
Make of us a house for all people. Gather us in hope for all people. Surround us in peace for all people.
I'm Nick Smith. We've been watching live remarks and a ceremony for the Capitol Museum reopening today, a little more than a week after 2 Israeli embassy staffers were fatally shot outside its doors. You're watching News Nation Streaming. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. We've been watching the live remarks in Washington, D.C. of the reopening of that Jewish museum in light of the two members being killed. We heard from the mayor. We heard from other city leaders and faith leaders talking about the need for communities to come together. It's just one of the many stories that we're following this morning. We're also keeping our eye on Florida, where Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Dr. Joseph Ladapo, the state surgeon general, have been holding a news conference at the Gulf Coast Medical Center in Fort Myers. They've been discussing the need to hire and retain medical professionals in the state of Florida. Let's go to those remarks live.
He was the president of the University of Michigan, which is usually considered one of the top public universities in America, and he wants to come to Florida. Now, people have pointed out a lot of statements that he has made that are not exactly what we're looking for in a state where woke goes to die. And I cringe at some of the judgment that he's really kind of reached the limit on the campus leftism, and he would want to leave Michigan, where that is prevalent, to Florida, where it's frowned upon, because he wants to be more in line with what Florida is doing in our policies. And they really believe that. Now, there's other folks that haven't necessarily talked to him. They see all these, and they're like, you can't do it. So he's going to go in front of the Board of Governors, and I appointed all those folks, and so they'll make the judgment. But people are saying, well, woke here. No, that's not going to happen, because if he were to go in and do that, he will lose his job in Florida. We have expectations about what we want in higher education. We don't want it to be a fountain of activism or leftist indoctrination. And if you go in that direction, then you will not have support to continue. And so either way, we will continue to have a higher education system that's really leading the way. Our expectations are clear, not only in law, which we have, such as by eliminating DE&I, but also in other actions that we have taken. And those expectations will need to be met one way or another. When we had the Hamas stuff breaking out across the country, and you had this other places, people said, oh man, it's not happening in Florida. I wonder why. Well, it wasn't a mystery why. If a president of a university in Florida allowed that to happen, they would no longer be the president of a university in the state of Florida. It's just that simple. So we have expectations for it, but I've appointed these people to do their job. I wasn't the one that picked the candidate or this or that. It's my view is like, let them do their job, let the process unfold. But however it works out, we will continue on the direction that we will, one way or another.
The city of Naples just lost an appeal to stop a drag show from being held outside next weekend at Camden Park. Of course, this comes as that state law is still blocked. How far is the state willing?
Children, why would it be problematic to say you can't do this stuff that's sexually explicit in front of minors? That used to not even be something that would be questioned. Now somehow you have folks going into court and they really want to push the envelope on this stuff. And I want Florida
Business School to please rise.
Schools with the edge, particularly for the young grades, about, are you going to be like California, where you report to second grade and you're not learning math or English, you're learning about changing genders? That's unacceptable. And we laid down the marker here. So parents in Florida should know that we're on their side, and these kids should not be robbed of their innocence. So when you have some of this stuff where you'd have these establishments where you could have minors in there, and that's not consistent with good policy. So we stand for the protection of the children, and we're going to continue to do that.
With the state budget still in limbo, are you concerned that this sales tax holiday could be effective? A lot of people take advantage of it.
Well, it already has been effective. I mean, you remember I proposed a Second Amendment tax holiday that was supposed to start on Memorial Day weekend. So you would have had a lot of folks that would have been able to go out and bought ammunition, bought firearms, and not had to pay any tax on it. Now, we're still going to, I think, get that enacted, but it will be over a different period of time. And so, you only have one job real job in the legislature, and that's to do the appropriations and to do the budget. You know, the policy changes, you can do it, but you're not required to change any policy. You're not required to pass new laws. You know, a lot of times they pass laws that are laws, right? I mean, as we've seen. So that's the one thing that they're supposed to do. They ended at the beginning of May without really much of a way forward. It's not clear to me that they have a better way forward. I have opinions on why that is, and at the appropriate time, you know, you'll hear me articulating those. But yeah, I mean, you should have already had sales tax relief. And that's something that's meaningful to a lot of Floridians. You know, when you say you're not going to have to do any sales tax, you know, if you're making purchases that are, you know, hundreds of dollars, sometimes even more than that, I mean, that adds up pretty quickly, and that's helpful for people. So we need to do that. We need to continue doing the holidays we do. We're just starting hurricane season. Why would we not want to do disaster preparedness holidays so you can load up tax-free on what you need in case? Now, look, knock on wood, hopefully we get a respite from hurricane this year. And in reality, you know, they do kind of come in bunches, and then sometimes you'll have, you know, several years where you don't have any. So hopefully we get into a respite here. But we can't assume that. We've got to prepare as if we're going to have. People have really used that in big ways. We also proposed a summer tax holiday on marine fuel. People want to go boating and go fish. You get the fuel tax free. You know, that's something that was very popular. People want to do. Of course, we do back to school tax holidays, which are good for parents. And to the school districts billions of dollars over the last 3 or 4 years. So we're doing these big things. We're cutting taxes, paying down debt, having a very responsible budget. And so that is not the type of scenario where you would expect a budget impasse. Like literally, if you can't agree, just copy and paste what we've been doing. This is not rocket science. And I think that there's reasons why it's gotten to this point, but we're going to have to get this done. We're going to have to do it for the state of Florida, and we're certainly not going to let the progress be derailed. Okay, thanks, everybody. God bless you.
We've been listening to comments from Governor DeSantis in Florida talking about the need to hire more medical professionals and retain those medical professionals in the state of Florida. You're watching News Nation Streaming. I'm Nick Smith. We'll take a short break. We're almost at the top of the hour. We're your place for all breaking news and developing stories in a longer format than you can get when you watch the broadcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Nick Smith. We've been watching a number of stories today, and we want to take you to the House floor, where they're recognizing former Representative Charles Rangel of New York, an outspoken, gavel-voiced Harlem Democrat who spent nearly 5 decades on Capitol Hill. He was a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus. He died on Monday at the age of 99. Let's go to the House floor.
House and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Clause 13 of Rule 1, the House now stands adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday, June 2nd, 2025.
That, of course, with members of the House recognizing Charles Rangel, the former representative from the state of New York, who died at the age of 94. Charlie Rangel was also a veteran of the United States military. He was an outspoken, gavel-voiced Harlem Democrat who spent nearly 5 decades on Capitol Hill. We, of course, here at News Nation send our prayers and condolences to his family and loved ones. We also have an opportunity to celebrate the cadets, those who are graduating to serve in our military. The U.S. Air Force Academy is having their graduation ceremony right now, and we have an opportunity to go there live. You're watching News Nation Streaming. I'm Nick Smith.
Within this processional are permanent professors appointed by Congress, military faculty, and civilian faculty. Military faculty bring Air Force and Space Force experience to the classroom and have earned a master's degree or doctorate. Civilian faculty wear their traditional academic regalia, prescribed by the degrees they hold. Each element identifies the highest degree earned, master's or doctorate, as well as the degree-granting institution and field of study. Additionally, squadron commanders, academy military trainers, and representatives of the cadet wing major units are in the processional. Squadron commanders lead the 40 squadrons that make up the cadet wing. These commanders are selected through a highly competitive process. They are comprised of pilots, navigators, combat systems operators, weapons systems operators, engineers, intelligence officers, logistics officers, cyber officers, maintainers, special agents, and many other career fields across the Department of the Air Force and Space Force. Also includes representatives of the Directorate of Athletics, which is comprised of coaches and staff who train intercollegiate, intramural, and club teams, as well as teach a robust variety of physical education courses. We are proud of our outstanding faculty, coaches, squadron commanders, representatives of whom appear on the stadium floor today to honor the class of 2025. Please join us in recognizing them.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief of Space Operations, General B. Chance Saltzman, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General David W. Ulvin, and the Superintendent of the United States Air Force Academy, Lieutenant General Tony D. Bauernfeind. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of the Air Force, the Honorable Troy E. Mink. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the graduating class of 2025. Graduates, halt, left, haste, wing, present, arms. Please remain standing and direct your attention to the north end of the stadium for the playing of the national anthem, followed by the invocation. Order, arms, at ease. Ladies and gentlemen, Chaplain Colonel Ruth N. Segrist, United States Air Force Academy Command Chaplain.
Thank you for pausing as I offer a poetic prayer. Lord, thank you for the graduating class of 2025 and the things that they have learned. Thank you for the academics and practical tools that are in their hands. Thank you for their instructors, commanders, family, and classmates too, who supported them through USAFA, helping them become blue. Thank you for their tenacity. They are warfighters who are postured to win the next conflict and war from without and within. Thank you that they are leaders of character and quality, and critical thinkers who will adapt to their environment, ensuring that the mission will not collapse. God, as they leave these hallowed grounds, may they reflect on academics and fun. Bless them, our nation's newest leaders, because tomorrow is day one. Now, class of 2025, give your nation your best. God be with you, and may you never quit, never settle, and be blessed. Amen.
Graduates, take seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Tony D. Bauernfeind, the Superintendent of the United States Air Force Academy.
Good morning and welcome as we celebrate the United States Air Force Academy Class of 2025. Today, we are honored to welcome our newly appointed 27th Secretary of the Air Force, the Honorable Troy Mink, serving us today, and welcome to your United States Air Force Academy. We are also honored to welcome the 23rd Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General David Alvin and his spouse Gina, the 2nd Chief of Space Operations for our Space Force, General Chance Saltzman and his spouse Jennifer, the Mayor of Colorado Springs, Mr. Yemi Mobilati and his wife Abby, and as well to the members of the long blue line of Academy graduates, our local leaders, and community partners. Thank you all for supporting our mission here in Colorado, whether it be in our local community or all the way back in Washington, D.C. Please, a round of applause to our guests. To the class of 2025, congratulations. After 4 years of challenging military training, academics, and athletics, your day one has arrived. On your I-Day, on 24 June 2021, you entered the Academy full of smiles for the first hour. Having arrived towards the end of the global pandemic, you received your official command voice welcome on the footprints wearing masks. Many of you have come a long way from arriving in flip-flops, showing up without paperwork, or packing like you were going on a European vacation. But today, you are our warrior leaders ready to lead in our Air Force and our Space Force. But please, as you sit here, reflect upon all the incredible support that you have received. Take a moment to thank your families, your friends, your sponsor families, and your support networks, because they've been there throughout your lives and especially here at USAFA. Take time to recognize the leaders you've become through the help of the Cadet Wing, your squadron commanders, and your Academy military trainers. Take time to recognize the knowledge that you have gained in the classroom because of our incredible faculty. As warrior scholars, you are now equipped to confront the complex challenges our nation faces today. And lastly, through your athletic competitions, thank your coaches, your trainers, and your instructors who prepared you physically and mentally to be resilient as you learn valuable lessons about character, perseverance, and leadership. To all of those that made you successful, another round of applause, please. There has been one glaring constant, and that constant has been change. Who you were in the June of 2021 is not who you are today. You have triumphs, you have failed, and you have fought to take your rightful place in the long blue line. How you manage change as leaders will define your future. And this year, I watched each and every one of you rise to the occasion, adapt to change, gain resilience, and achieve the warfighting readiness to lead our airmen and guardians that are waiting on you. In a year of transformation, you led our efforts and established our pathway to success. You established our foundation to forge warfighters to win, to inspire leaders of character and quality, and to motivate critical thinkers to adapt. As warfighters to win, you accepted the challenge and embraced the warrior ethos our nation demands, with a focus on readiness in all forms: physical, mental, and spiritual. You are offensively minded, mission focused, and you built your teams who overcame challenges and adversity. Your military training, your academics, and your athletics prepared you for this. You became the example for the Cadet Wing as we established foundational warfighter skills and executed 2 entire Cadet Wing in the field military exercises. In our first year of culminating exercises, we set the bar high and you leapt over it. Keep going strong this is just the beginning, and you need to keep the momentum as you lead in our rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. Now, as warrior scholars, you integrated rigorous academics, immersive training, and cutting-edge research to prepare you for combat leadership. Your education was deliberately designed to ensure you are the warfighters who can outthink, outmaneuver, and outfight our adversaries. From putting satellites in numerous national competitions and providing research to support our operational Air Force and Space Force, you excelled and you advanced our strategic advantage. And as athletes over the past 4 years, you were warriors through every competition, which led us to 3 individual national championships, 37 All-Americans, and 16 top 25 team finishes in the nation. And lastly, against our sister military service academies in all sports, you dominated with an overall record of 66, 27, and 1, reminding West Point and Annapolis that the Air Force Academy remains far, far above. As leaders of character and quality, you chose Colonel William Psycho Andrews as your class exemplar. For those of you unfamiliar, each class at our academy selects an exemplar whose qualities they hope to emulate. Every time someone says the class year, they shout the name of their exemplar. Colonel Andrews was a USAFA class of 1980 graduate, and he was one of the most decorated airmen of Desert Storm, receiving the Air Force Cross for heroism after he was shot down and captured as a prisoner of war. After capture, he saw enemy surface-to-air missiles fly by and his wingmen flying overhead, attempting to execute the rescue. In a moment of rebellion, he reached for his survival radio and redirected his wingmen, keeping them safe from enemy fire. During questioning, Colonel Andrews refused to provide information, even as Iraqi intelligence enticed him with better treatment and a promise that no one would ever know. But Colonel Andrews did not falter. He relied on his core values, he stayed true to his character, and he remained silent. After his release, Colonel Andrews continued to serve with honor until his retirement in 2010. While we lost Colonel Andrews in 2015, his legacy remained strong with the class of 2025. Like your exemplar, who embodied our core values and commitment to servant leadership, you made hard calls, and you have faced adversity knowing that leaders do the right thing, the right way, popular. As servant leaders, our airmen and guardians deserve this. Our missions require this, and our nation demands this. While here, you also experienced tragic loss of teammates. During those difficult times, you came together, you stood by one another, and you offered compassion and support through the unimaginable. This and so many other examples of your time at USAFA have made you leaders of character and quality. And finally, as critical thinkers to adapt, you learned to develop innovative solutions to complex problems while operating with limited information. You prepared for modern and future warfare in the air, space, and cyber domains, ensuring we maintain our strategic advantage for the joint force. You challenged the status quo. You built teams to tackle problems from multiple perspectives to ensure your success. And through your warfighter training, your academics, and your athletics, you learned to analyze and adapt to emerging threats. Our future demands your continued critical thought. Class of 2025. your day one has arrived, and I am exceptionally proud of your.
I'm Nick Smith. We are watching the graduation of the U.S. Air Force Academy's class of 2025. Nearly 1,000 cadets becoming U.S. Air Force and Space Force officers at today's ceremony at Falcon Stadium in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And the ceremony's conclusion, the Thunderbirds will do a flyover. Let's take a short break. We'll go back to those remarks when we come back. Welcome back to News Nation Streaming. I'm Nick Smith. We've had an exciting day today just covering and following so many of the things that are just top of mind for all of us. We've had an opportunity to dip in, waiting for the Secretary to speak, who is speaking now. This is the graduation of the U.S. Air Force Academy's class of 2025. Nearly 1,000 cadets becoming U.S. Air Force and Space Force officers today. At the end of the ceremony, we will see the Falcons fly over. And again, it's an exciting time because the Thunderbirds will do their flyover at the end of the ceremony, and each of these graduates will become commissioned officers. Let's go back to the ceremony happening.
He was the sharpest of the three brothers, even though he was the youngest. The other two had to settle for the Naval Academy. So 2 weeks into the job, and I expect I'll have to be apologizing to a couple of Navy leaders when I get back to D.C. On Friday, but just kidding. We love our sister services. So General Alvin and Mrs. Alvin, General Saltzman and Mrs. Saltzman, and General Bonfine, thank you, and Mrs. Bonfine, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for all the distinguished guests and everybody who has made this day possible for the cadets. Obviously it's a day that the cadets are going to remember for their entire lives. I'd also take a little bit of time to thank the support infrastructure for all the class of 2025. To all the friends, family, mentors, sponsors who rightly have made significant sacrifices to help the cadets get into the academy, get through the academy, help them with all the decisions they've made throughout their time here, where they're going to go, what field they want to lead into. It's great. People would never get through these sorts of hard courses without that support, and I want to thank you all for that. Unfortunately, it's not going to change. That support infrastructure is going to be required going forward. Although I was active duty officer for 5 years, I was a spouse for over 20 years. My wife is a retired Air Force officer, and although we loved our experience, pretty much all of it, but we love pretty much all of our experience, things are not going to get easier. Although there's a lot of work here at the Academy, getting through the Academy, you should be extremely proud of that. The pressure, the pace is going to continue to improve or continue to increase as you train, deploy, and fight in the operational Air Force. And that support infrastructure is going to be just as important today as it is going forward as it is today. So thank you very much for everybody and all their support. So to classes 2026. A little slow on their response. 2027. 2028. Well, there you go. Remember that they had more warning than the 2026 class. Remember that everything you do in your remaining time as a day, the time when you will make your own impact on the mission. Good luck, and I look forward to being here when you graduate over the next coming years. Now, back to class of 2025. They're winning so far. Today is the culmination of 4 years of hard work. Your journey started with a clap of thunder on 2024 on June 2021. I'm not hearing any thunder, but we're getting a little bit of rain, I think, like you got. In the middle of processing in the storm, standing under the footsteps of Vandenberg Tower. You kept going despite all the adversities we could think to throw at you. We gave you a motto: never quit, never settle. And you haven't quit, and you haven't settled. That persistence got you to this point through all the challenges you faced. You've overcome athletic rigors. As the superintendent pointed out, the 2-1 win ratio over the other services, I'm sure you're appreciating it now, but you will continue to appreciate that throughout your career. That is a battle that never ends. That is a discussion that never ends. After 25, 30 years, you'll still be talking about that. Gymnast Patrick Hoops won back-to-back national championships in the pommel horse. Scott Rocket won Division I title with an air rifle. That's got to be one of the best names I've ever heard, Rocket. Many of you competed in intramural sports throughout the wild weather Colorado could throw at you. You also overcame academic trials. You not only passed Chemistry 100 and Astro 310, but some of you went far beyond. You secured patents for autonomous robotic systems, you tested hypersonic vehicles, and you launched payloads to the International Space Station. I think the superintendent told me this morning that over the last 6 years, there was 36 patents awarded to the Academy cadets. That's just unbelievable. And some of you are continuing on to graduate school, including Margaret Mayhem, who won and was awarded the Marshall Scholarship. Others are headed off to programs at MIT and other institutions. Like a young lieutenant that I knew, 1998 graduate of the Academy, Colonel and now astronaut Nick Hague, who worked for me about 25 years ago as a brand new cadet graduate out of MIT. Some of you may know him. He is the U.S. astronaut that managed to survive a Russian rocket blowing up underneath of him. And then a couple years later, just last year, was commanded the launch, the mission that went up and rescued the 2 astronauts that were stranded on the International Space Station. So a long pedigree out of the Academy for sure. You overcame military challenges, your 4-degree year, and recognition. You stepped into leadership roles and made this place your own. Sometimes you even went a little too far and had to march a few tours. Something about Ziggy. I wanted to ask, but I was told I don't want to ask and I don't want to see. Your training in Pinion Cannon. Now, I have to admit that when I went through survival training, that was not the most enjoyable time in my early career, but it teaches you a lot. The important thing to remember is that there is nothing your class couldn't overcome. In class of 2025, it's exactly that tenacity we need. We need you. We need you because the Air Force and Space Force that you are about to join are not the same services that I your instructors, AOCs, and coaches joined. You are joining a Department of the Air Force in transition. For the past 25 years, we've been focused. All right, I get it. Took me a second. That was not on purpose on my part. For the past 25 years, we've been focused on low-intensity conflict in the Middle East, but no longer. This administration has made its national security focus crystal clear. Number one, defend the homeland. Number two, deter China in the Indo-Pacific. Class of 2025. That one was on purpose. The Indo-Pacific will be your generation's fight, and you will deliver the most lethal force that this nation has ever existed, or we will not succeed. The character of war is changing, today more rapidly than ever before. You can clearly see, not only in the Ukraine skies, but in the skies over Israel and the Red Sea. Years ago, when I was a second lieutenant, only a handful of nations could precisely strike targets hundreds of miles away. Today, even a group of Yemen rebels can employ anti-ballistic missiles at range. To meet this new reality, we must rebuild our military, and we are now in the midst of the largest modernization in our history. We are developing and procuring new systems in nearly every mission area in both the Air Force and the Space Force. And in some cases, we are creating new missions that weren't even thought about 5 or 4 years ago when you entered the academy. We are treating space like the contested environment it is. We are building the most lethal airborne platforms in history. We are building low-cost drones, and we are building sensors and battle networks to stitch it all together. We are also training in this environment. Next month, we will have the largest exercise since the Cold War, and that exercise will be in the Indo-Pacific. Why are we going to do that? We focus on the Indo-Pacific because it is a threat unlike anything we have ever faced. This is not late-stage Cold War where we had a decisive advantage over the Soviets. That's what I came into. This is not the unipolar moment in the 1990s when America stood unchallenged. This is not the global war on terror in the 2000 and 2010s where we enjoyed freedom of the skies. Today's competition with China is wide-ranging and it is unpredictable. There will be no sanctuaries, and many of our assumptions about air and space power will change. If we continue to operate as we have in the past, we will fail in the future. And we cannot afford to fail. We must be ready at all times. Every minute of every day, airmen stand watch in missile launch control centers. Guardians stand watch on satellite control centers. Pilots stand watch in alert facilities. We stand watch because the defense of the homeland is a no-fail mission. It is Air Force F-22s that still intercept Russian bombers in the North Arctic, a mission that we've been doing for decades. It is the Space Force's sensors that detect incoming missiles or other threats in space. And this mission is only getting more important. That is why we are at the forefront of designing and building the President's Golden Dome for America initiative, with a guardian, General Gutlein, in the lead. And if our nation should call, we are ready at a moment's notice to deploy, to fight, and to win anytime, anywhere, with the most advanced systems on the planet. We have a long legacy of being the first to fight. America's offensive response to the bombings at Pearl Harbor was the Doolittle Raid, 30 seconds over Tokyo. It's actually the first book I remember reading. American bombers were our first force to respond to North Korea invasion in the South in the 1950s. In Afghanistan, air power was on hand from day one, supporting special operations in their march to Kabul. No matter what the conflict of the future looks like, air power and space power will be at its leading edge, and you must be ready for it at all times. Class of 2025. You may not see it now, but there is a reason why we put you through the paces these last 4 years. There is a reason why the Academy is as hard as you have seen it to be. As you look back at your time here, you will see how well it prepared you for what it will take in the future. How well it has forged you into leaders of character that we need our Air Force and Space Force. Everything you have been through these past 4 years has been for this purpose. There is a reason why you receive bachelor's degrees of science, because the systems we are acquiring and operating are some of the most advanced and sophisticated systems in the world. The cornerstone of our will be your skill set and knowledge. I understand about half of you are going on to be rated careers. Your ability to effectively employ the systems we have today and the new systems we are delivering will be the decisive advantage we have over our adversaries. I also understand that just over 100 of you will be joining the Space Force. Our youngest service is also one of the most technical. Space actually is hard. To succeed, we need smart, tenacious leaders across the force. And I believe space will be one of the asymmetric advantages the U.S. has over our adversaries. Others will become missileers, maintainers, logisticians, cyber defenders, engineers, acquirers, analysts. All those are needed to make this great machine of an Air Force operate. No matter your job, we will find what you've learned here critical. Data is now ubiquitous. Robotic systems are increasingly capable. AI is more than just a buzzword. Our services were born of technology, and I commit to you that we will put what you've learned here to use. There are no shortages of problems for you to solve. I've spent quite a bit of time in the Pentagon, maybe more time than I would have liked in the Pentagon. It is a place where critical decisions are made, but the Pentagon doesn't fight wars. Young officers, lieutenants, captains fight wars. Lieutenants like you, in about 2 hours, have the drive, the skill, the fearlessness to try new things. Lieutenants can innovate. Lieutenants need to innovate. They can solve problems, and they can win tomorrow's war. Lieutenants like Chris Pritchard, who deployed to the Middle East last year shortly after arriving at his first operational squadron. On his first combat mission, he dropped 4 GPS-guided bombs as part of a complex strike package. Later in the same deployment, he shot down a Houthi drone over the Red Sea. Despite the dynamic circumstances, he executed exactly as he and thousands of other young aviators had been trained to do, to accomplish the mission. Captains like Jonathan Novak, who was a key engineer on a multi-billion-dollar orbital program. He has not only wrote an award-winning thesis while getting his master's at MIT, but then directly applied that knowledge into building the coursework for orbital warfare and engineers to follow. Lieutenants like Mara Cage, who commanded flight and manages a global supply of hundreds of different spare parts for our B-52 fleet. Readiness is a challenge. People like that are critical to make sure that our forces have what they need to fight. Captains like Nick Forrest, who was asked to serve at the National Reconnaissance, where I most recently worked a couple weeks ago. He is one of the dozens of young officers that we have deployed around the world to bring data science to the fight. He is currently embedded in the White House Situation Room, building models and bringing intelligence products to the most senior leadership in our government. In fact, throughout its history, some of the Air Force's proudest achievements have been accomplished by lieutenants, young people who make their dreams into reality, despite the challenges. John Boyd, legendary fighter pilot and father, formulated most of his ideas about advanced fighter combat tactics while in Korea as a lieutenant. Ira Bong, America's ace, who eventually scored 40 aerial victories during World War II, first became an ace as a lieutenant. In fact, Hap Arnold, the father of the Air Force, was a second lieutenant when he talked his way in to the Wright brothers aeronautical training course, undeterred by advice that he should not join the aviation duty community only because if he wished to commit suicide. He became the U.S.'s military's first pilot and laid the groundwork for everything you see here today. Innovation and initiative is in our DNA. the young people like yourselves are the sources of many of our proudest achievements. Congratulations, class of 2025. Welcome to the Air Force and the Space Force. We are counting on you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cadet Class President for 2025. Cadet First Class Caleb Kavanaugh. The Summer Cadet Wing Commander, Cadet First Class D. Micah Stark. The Fall Cadet Wing Commander, Cadet First Class Grace Beal. And the Spring Cadet Wing Commander, Cadet First Class Joseph Cheddar, will present the class gifts to the Secretary of the Air Force.
Secretary Mink, for your dedicated service to our nation, United States Air Force, United States Space Force, and United States Air Force Academy. It is with great pride that today's graduating class designates you by acclamation an honorary member of the United States Air Force Academy's class of 2025. As tangible evidence of that honor, we ask that you accept this painting by Justin Hayward on behalf of the United States Air Force Academy. We also present you with our class coin as a token of our appreciation.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Linnell Latundra, the Dean of the Faculty.
Before presenting the entire graduating class to you, Secretary Mink, I would like to highlight a few individuals for special recognition. First, I call your attention to the 94 distinguished graduates who are listed on the top of your program. These cadets, by their overall performance, have placed in the top 10% of their class and have demonstrated excellence in accomplishing the academic, military, and athletic requirements for graduation. If we observed the custom of academic honors, each would be graduating either summa cum laude, magna cum laude, or cum laude. Instead, we use the term distinguished graduate, more fitting of its promise of distinguished service to our nation. At this time, will the distinguished graduates from the Colonel William Francis Psycho Andrews class please rise and be recognized? Thank you. Please be seated. Those identified in your program with an S beside their name are cadets graduating with the Academic Scholar distinction, having completed a challenging academic enrichment path through the 4-year core curriculum as part of the Martinson Honors Program. We would also like to recognize those cadets who have placed in the top 10% of our academic, military, and athletic programs. Identified in your program with a star by their names are cadets graduating with academic distinction. Those identified with a wreath beside their names are cadets graduating with military distinction. And those identified in the program with a lightning bolt beside their names are cadets graduating with athletic distinction. Those exceptional 11 cadets graduating with all 3 distinctions are identified with a star in a wreath resting on 2 lightning bolts. Please stand as I call your name. Annika Rose Havlick. Ryan James Buckton. Renata Janelle Russell. Max Walker Lasco. Will Raymond French. Evan Coulter Hoke. Joseph Rodney Lynch. Abby Grace Hulasikun. Allison Marie Kaylin Alejandro. And Ryan Philip Tremaine. Congratulations, you may be seated. In conclusion, a total of 909 Air Force Academy cadets in this year's class have completed all graduation requirements. And Dr. Mink, you'll be proud that 153 of these warfighter scholars will proceed directly to graduate school as their first assignment. We are also pleased to have in the class of 2025 14 international students from Guyana, Indonesia, Kosovo, Malaysia, Niger, Panama, Peru, Philippines, Romania, Senegal, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Thailand, and Tunisia. Will all of our international students please stand to be recognized? Thank you. Please be seated. Warfighter scholars, it has been my absolute honor and privilege to have been your Dean of Faculty. And now it gives me great pleasure to present to you, Secretary Mink, the United States Air Force Academy, Colonel William Francis Psycho Andrews, class of 2025. And recommend you each as worthy of the Bachelor of Science degree.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Candace L. Pipes, Director of Admissions, and Dr. Hal A. Taylor, Jr., Associate Dean for Student Academic Affairs and Academy Registrar, will now present the diplomas to the graduating class of 2025.
Will the distinguished graduates please rise and come forward to receive your diplomas? Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of the Air Force, the Honorable Troy E. Mink, joins us on stage to congratulate the graduates of the class of 2025.
The class of 2025's #1 cadet in overall performance, Annika Rose Havlick.
Ryan James Buckton.
Renata Janelle Russell.
Max Walker Lasco.
The class of 2025's #1 cadet in military performance, Andrew Frank Amadeo Espinoza, Jr.
Dante Benjamin Cometto.
Madison Ruth Campbell.
Mark Wendell Carnes, Jr.
Quentin Carl Keyes.
Will Raymond French.
Joseph Patrick Oskowitz.
Evan Colton Hope.
Joseph Rodney Lynch.
The class of 2025's #1 cadet in academic.
And you were watching the U.S. Air Force Academy graduation ceremony in Colorado, and earlier there, Secretary of the Air Force Troy Mink delivered that commencement address. Happy Thursday to you. It's so good to be with you today on NewsNation Now. I'm Natasha Zubes. We are monitoring what's happening live. Let's take you to New Orleans right now. This is the latest press conference that just began about the police and law enforcement's continuing efforts to capture those escaped inmates. Let's take a listen.
Very seriously, and we also understand the sensitivity when someone reports someone that they know personally with regards to a crime. And since the escape, Crime Stoppers has fielded close to 700 tips with regards to the information on the 10 inmates. We actually, at the peak of this, had to add 4 additional lines to accommodate the calls to the call center, the Crime Stoppers call center. And I want you to know that we vetted every single tip, prioritize them for the delivery to our lead agency, Louisiana State Police, and the other agency partners that stand with us. We know that we have been told tips assisted in 3 arrests of inmates. In the first tip that came in that led to an arrest, actually the team, the incredible work by this team, that arrest came within 30 minutes of the tip. I can tell you that 3 tipsters will be paid rewards. And again, it's by the work that's been confirmed from the information the community provides to from law enforcement. I can't thank enough the LSP Fusion Center, the individuals who we work with, the call takers, who we passed every single tip by. I also can't thank enough my staff and our call center for keeping, staying the course. We know that tips from the public plays an incredible role, and we also appreciate that we have the trust coming to Crime Stoppers for those tips. But our work is not done. With 2 remaining inmates, our board, our organization, wanted to stand firm and encourage anyone who might have intimate knowledge of the whereabouts of Mr. Massey or Mr. Groves not to wait, but to contact us immediately. To kind of put a little meat behind that, we wanted to let you know that Crime Stoppers today has increased its reward for information that leads directly to the arrest of each of these individuals, up to $20,000. Now with Crime Stoppers, we are combining with the ATF, making the reward significantly higher. And you're eligible for the Crime Stoppers reward by contacting us directly. With Crime Stoppers, you're going to remain anonymous. It's our standard protocols. And we truly hope that with this increased amount, if you have personal knowledge of the whereabouts of these individuals that can help law enforcement make that arrest, to contact us. And again, we can't say it enough, with Crime Stoppers, you will remain anonymous. Now I'd like to have the ATF speak up.
All right, thank you. Hey, good morning. My name is Joshua Jackson. I am the special agent in charge for the ATF New Orleans Field Division. As New Orleans has heard me said in other communities in Louisiana, ATF's priority mission is to prevent, reduce, and solve violent crime. In this particular response, this is preventing additional violent crime from happening to our citizens in our community. The 10 escapees definitely had violent criminal histories, and they definitely were it had a lot of impact on public safety within the communities that we serve. I want to pull the curtain back a little bit and kind of give some acknowledgments to our partners. First, LSP, leading this investigation. Colonel Hodges has been instrumental in coordinating efforts and keeping all of the federal partners and local partners engaged and aware and appraised of what's going on. This investigation has stretched beyond the borders of Louisiana. Also want to give a lot of acknowledgement to our federal partners, and that's FBI, United States Marshal Service, and HSI. HSI, NOPD, and ATF, we have a task force that works in the city. You guys might recall when we did a press conference speaking about the crime drop, the violent crime decreases within the city of New Orleans, and we talked about this task force. This task force is led by New Orleans Police Department Special Operations Division Tactical Team 2, ATF, and Homeland Security Investigations. This team has been instrumental in this response. This task force is the one that comes out, and they do investigate violent crime in all capacities, to include this fugitive apprehension. They've been instrumental in conducting search warrants, interviews that have directly led to the arrest and capture of some of these escapees. The last acknowledgement and thank you I want to give to the public and the community at large. You guys have been instrumental in providing tips and working with us to help keep you safe. We're not at the finish line. We still have 2 more to go that we need to capture and bring back and put back in custody, as they do pose a risk to public safety to all of us in the community. I also want to reiterate to firearm owners, we want to make sure that this is already a dangerous situation. We want to make sure that firearms are secured in your vehicles. We don't want any handguns, rifles that are unsecured coming into the hands of these two individuals who are still outstanding. Also be vigilant in your home. Make sure your firearms are secured throughout the area until we get these 2 individuals back into custody. So thank you to New Orleans and the greater Louisiana area for your assistance and your help with this investigation. I'm going to turn it over to Chief of the United States Marshals.
Oh, sorry about that. Good morning. I'm Walter Martin. I'm the Chief Deputy with the U.S. Marshals here in New Orleans. I want to start by thanking several groups. I first want to thank Darlene and Crime Stoppers, GNO, for not only increasing the reward, but for also her partnership and everything that they've done behind the scenes to assist not only the U.S. Marshals, but my law enforcement partners that are standing here. And their support with the community has been phenomenal. I would also like to thank the men and women you see standing here with me today, but more importantly, the men and women that are behind the scenes working hard every day. Ever since the escape occurred, they have been tirelessly working, dedicating their time and giving up, sacrificing their personal and professional time to work on finding these escapees. I also want to thank the public for their support, not only of law enforcement, but for providing the tips and the information that is needed to find the escapees. More importantly, I would like to echo what Colonel Hodges has been telling you guys from the start, as well as what our leaders have been saying, that we need the community support. Continue to provide the tips, send them to Crime Stoppers, send them to the ATF, to the FBI, to the Marshal Service. We are vetting those tips, and we're using that information to catch the individuals. As you have seen thus far, we've captured 8 of them, and we plan on catching the remaining 2. If you know something, say something. Please contact Crime Stoppers, ATF, the Marshal Service, FBI, and thank you for your support. Now I'd like to introduce FBI Special Agent in Charge, Jonathan Tapp. Thank you.
Good morning, folks. Thank you, Chief. I'm Jonathan Tapp, Special Agent in Charge of the FBI here in New Orleans. Today marks day 13 in our search for escapees Antoine Massey and Derek Groves, and we want you to know that we will find them. The FBI remains committed to supporting our law enforcement partners to recapture these dangerous inmates. The FBI has utilized every resource at our disposal to locate and apprehend the remaining 2 fugitives. Agents and analysts have been working every day to ensure that credible leads are pursued with urgency. And that's not just here in New Orleans, but across the country. What we need from you, the public, is to continue to give us leads. If you think you've seen either of these men or have any information, call 911, call Crime Stoppers, call 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can submit a tip at fbi.gov/New Orleans fugitives, but please report any information. We're also announcing that we, the FBI, are increasing our potential reward per inmate, Massey and Groves, from $10,000 to $20,000 with our partners. We want you to know the FBI handles every lead with discretion, and we do our utmost to preserve anonymity. But sometimes this is difficult. We understand with our law enforcement partners that some of you might be reporting a friend, a loved one, a relative, and albeit not easy, it's critical to your safety and the safety of the public that you report that. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Colonel Hodges.
Thank you, SAC Tapp. Good morning, everyone. 2 weeks in, and our mission remains unchanged. In locating and apprehending the remaining fugitives is our top priority. You see them on the monitor to your left, my right, and it shows 8 captured and 2 remaining. Over the past 2 weeks, strong collaboration with our Crime Stoppers, Darlene and her team, local, state, and our federal partners that you see to my left and right and behind me have been with them, we've taken 8 of the 10 safely back into custody and transported them to a secure state facility in Louisiana. Additionally, multiple individuals who aided these fugitives after their escape have been arrested. I want to be clear. Anyone who chooses to help the remaining fugitives in any way will be arrested and prosecuted. The decision is simple. Assist law enforcement and potentially earn a reward, or try to assist these fugitives and go to jail with a potentially high bond. As SAC Tapp said, we know their family members, their friends, but they are a public safety risk for you, everyone around you, and the entire state of Louisiana. You must do the right thing. With Crime Stoppers increasing the reward amount, now is the time to make the right choice. Turn in valuable information and help us bring them in safely and receive a reward. All contact information is available on our websites, our social media platforms, and can be shared again following this conference. This remains an evolving investigation. Things change. I want to thank our Texas DPS troopers who helped us Monday. I also want to thank our Baton Rouge City Police here in Louisiana who helped us also capture a fugitive on Monday as well. We'll continue to share updates with the public as more information becomes available. Please follow our social media pages and for the latest developments on what we have. Once again, this is a team effort. It takes all of us. That's why you have the New Orleans Police Department, you have the FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, ATF, the U.S. Marshals, and even those who are not with us up here right now, our sheriffs in the neighboring parishes and many other agencies, Harbor Police, our Orleans and Jefferson Levee District, all of those agencies are instrumental in working this operation around the clock. So please know that the public, once again, that we are working for you. It's for all of Louisiana, and as mentioned, sometimes these dangerous fugitives travel outside our borders. So we need everyone in another state, and you have a tip or another parish or another city, please contact us. This concludes our conference, and we'll take any questions.
When this manhunt started, we heard a lot about law enforcement, about being pretty confident that inmates were still in the metro area. We now know, 2 arrests in Texas, 1 in Baton Rouge. So do you guys have any idea geographically about where Derrick Rose and Antoine Massey are today?
So once again, we have some strong leads, but these remaining 2 fugitives, they have help, and therefore they move. And sometimes they move outside New Orleans, outside Louisiana, because they have help. And at this time, we're closing in on the remaining 2 escapees, and that we should have them in custody soon. But law enforcement is patient, but more importantly, we're resilient. And although they're going to get tired and frustrated as they try to move around Louisiana or move around the metropolitan area, they know the walls are closing in, and very soon we'll have them in custody.
So you do think they're in the Louisiana metro area?
We're confident that we have strong investigative leads as to their whereabouts. But we still need the public's help, because as soon as we get one lead, then they relocate to another place, whether that's a home or business or a public area, and the information is only as good as the public continuing to call Crime Stoppers, ATF, FBI, the State Police Fusion Center, the Marshal Service, HSI, NOPD, all the agencies here. You think it may be something incredibly small or you may be not certain, just make the call. Let us vet it. Let our team of professionals investigate it, and then it can ultimately confirm what we already know or maybe new information that provides a different location if, in fact, they left from where we think they are right now.
Hi, I'm Katie Royce from CBS News. Something that's come up from our viewers around the country is concerns about, you mentioned loved ones, relatives calling in, making the tough call to provide tips. But some people are concerned, are family members conspiring with these fugitives to receive money, and everyone benefits from the escape? And the second question is, 3 tipsters so far have been paid rewards. How much has each person received?
So I don't have those exact amounts because there's different agencies involved, but I think I'll let Ms. Costanza speak on the Crime Stoppers portion.
Thank you. So for the Crime Stoppers portion, the available funds was $10,000, plus the ATF fund was included with that. And that's strictly on 3 different cases. And as far as rewards that's been paid, we've only paid 1 reward to date. The others will be paid shortly.
And as far as the alleged, conspiracies, concerns about family members benefiting financially from this escape?
Well, I think the bigger concern, and I'm not trying to answer your question, is public safety. If you're concerned about your loved one, I can't imagine what it feels like to have to call the police and say, my son is here, my brother is here, my cousin is here, but they are a risk and have proven that they're a risk because they were already incarcerated for charges, violent charges, and now they're escaped. And they have an opportunity to come to court and to, again, well, some of them just need to be relocated, and the sentences have already been done with the remaining 2. But with that being said, because once you leave outside of your home, you're around everyone else. And I think it would be unthinkable if these two individuals hurt someone else and you knew about it, you would feel really bad. So with regard to the money aspect of it, I just think it's the right thing to do. And if you receive a reward, that's outstanding. That's why we appreciate the partnership with Crime Stoppers. But it must lead to an arrest, and we just encourage people to continue calling. Yes, sir.
At the peak of this, 700 tips in. Were tips starting to dwindle? Is that part of the reason why the increase in the reward for information leading to an arrest?
I would say that any time that more days pass by, the fugitives can have other opportunities because there's more people that can help them. And with regard to obviously the conference was to let them know that there's an increased amount because we know the importance of bringing these last two back into custody and the public safety risk. I don't think that the tips have decreased. We hope with these new reward amounts that they increase even more than what we've had. However, they move and they change. So the information that you call and provide is only good for a short amount of time. And therefore, we need additional leads and additional calls and tips to help the public. So I believe that we will get more tips, and that's, I believe, part of the plan. We appreciate our business community and those who are part of our Crime Stoppers board, Norman, who's here representing with Darlene as well, and our community that comes together as a whole, realizing it's everyone's safety is at risk here and not just one particular city.
And if I may, a quick follow-up. I know in the case of Mr. Van Buren, who was captured in Baton Rouge PD said that he appeared to change his appearance, his hairstyle. Are you all concerned that any of the remaining fugitives have changed their appearance?
Well, I mean, certainly, again, as more time passes, things change. People could change their appearance. We believe that we have good information, whether they change their appearance or not, but that's common amongst most fugitives. Obviously, they're going to change clothes. They may change facial hair, may change their hair on their head and things like that to put a ball cap on, different clothes and things like that. But we understand Baton Rouge was, and I just want to thank them again, Chief T.J. Morse and his officers for helping us, as well as Texas DPS and Colonel Freeman Martin, who provided 2 in Texas and 1 here. And yes, they sometimes change appearances. Y'all saw in the photographs. And I think they could change appearance again. So I think the public, if you just look at the photographs to your left up on that board and look very closely, probably not changing their eyes and their nose and their smile. So I would just focus on those things. And we're confident that family members and friends have seen them, know where they are, and could really reach out to us based on that and not be easily, how you want to say, distracted by a change in hair or on the head or face. Okay?
The Orleans Justice Center, it's only a decade old. Obviously, there were some serious structural failings with the escape itself. There have also been a number of problems since the escape actually happened. I know the Sheriff's Office isn't here today, but can any of y'all speak to why a decade-old state-of-the-art facility is in such shambles?
So our focus today on this conference is obviously to make the public aware that the reward has increased, and the reward is directly related to the apprehension of the remaining and escapees, to bring them back in custody. We're not going to comment on the jail or any conditions prior to. We're just looking forward. We have 8 captured. We have 2 more remaining, and that's what we need the public's help with. There'll be a time later that you'll be able to ask those questions, but this conference is specifically geared to those 2 fugitives who remain at large.
Ms. Darlene, can you just reiterate and walk us through, for people that want to bring in tips and see the inmates, what's the next step? And have tips helped with those that were aiding and abetting, like finding out who was actually part of the fugitives escape?
So I'll say that we've gotten tips on all different things. So we've gotten tips on certainly on the fugitives, where they may be, who they may be with. Certainly certain tips have helped and assisted law enforcement to make the apprehensions of 3 of the individuals. As far as the other individuals who are aiding and abetting, yes, we've gotten information from those folks. What we're telling you is that you need to go ahead and make sure that you contact us. You receive a tip number when you call Crime Stoppers. You're able to update your information, and believe me, many of these tipsters are. Send us the update. Send us what you're seeing on social media. All of that is, again, combined and vetted by law enforcement as they build, as they work the puzzle of this. But at the end of this, we will hope that one person, at least one tipster's information, will lead to that arrest. And with regards to the volume of tips, when we first started out, remember, we had 10 folks that we were looking for, then down to 8. Certainly that volume was affected by the number of individuals who were out there. We look at every individual as a case. So we're now down to 2. I now 100% agree with the Colonel that we're going to see an increase with this huge reward of people sending information. We want you to be part of the team. That's why we're standing here asking you to be part of the team and part of the solution. Thank you.
So can you say which 3 have been apprehended? Like thanks to tips?
Yeah, we're not going to discuss that. Just know 8 are in custody at a secure facility here in the state, and then we have 2 remaining. But we just want to focus on those 2. If your question pertains to the rewards, will be allocated accordingly once they go through the protocols. Crime Stoppers has been in business for almost 50 years. They're very successful for a reason, because they pay on the rewards, which match an arrest, and they do it anonymously. So I think the public can feel confident that if the information that you provide does in fact lead to an arrest and a conviction, it will be in good position to provide our partners here, FBI, ATF, and Crime Stoppers, will provide those rewards. Make no mistake, they've been around a long time because they're resourceful, they're helpful, they're part of the community, and ultimately they pay those rewards.
So what is the total reward amount now with both of these increases?
It's $50,000 per remaining fugitive with our partners here, a combination of Crime Stoppers, ATF, and the FBI.
Anyone over here? Thoughts?
You go first.
My question is, there's more than a dozen we know that have helped these inmates escape or after their escape. So have the people that you guys have talked to, has that started helping in this search for the last 2?
Well, I think it sends a message that if you assist or you help those who remain fugitives, that you will be charged and prosecuted. And I go back on what I said earlier, make the right decision, contact law enforcement or Crime Stoppers and our partners up here, and give us the information that we need to bring them to justice. If you help and you assist, you're just putting all of public safety at risk by doing that. And that we ask again the public to please contact us with the information.
All right, I have a question. As far as timing goes, we're heading into week 2 of this investigation. Does time help the remaining inmates, or does it help the law enforcement in terms of, it seems like they're just running around in circles at this point as you guys are picking up leads. But if we head into week 3, does it make it more difficult for the law enforcement, or does it make it more difficult for the remaining inmates?
I think it makes it more difficult for the escapees because they're tired, they're looking over their shoulder, they're running out of resources, and with the increase in the reward amount today, we're going to get more tips, which means we're going to close in faster, and therefore, I think the advantage goes to law enforcement, and we need the public's help to ensure that we keep that advantage. Thank you.
And is there any concern about them, I guess, trying to leave the country? I think that's
No, I don't think they have those resources, but certainly we have our federal partners here, and that's why it's beyond the city of New Orleans and the borders of Louisiana, and it's a collaborative effort amongst federal, state, and local law enforcement.
Last question. Do you at all believe that Vance and Rose could be together at this point? Do you believe they might be separate?
Well, we don't rule anything out, but we're not going to talk about ongoing, tactics and techniques and things and information that we have. It's just best that the public, if someone knows if they're traveling together, please call us. We would like to have that information.
All right. That concludes everything. Thank you all for coming.
You're a pro.
I did all right. Thankfully, we had good action.
That was a live update from the ground in New Orleans. It has been nearly 2 weeks since that jailbreak when 10 inmates escaped through a hole behind a toilet. The search still very much underway in earnest for 2 missing men, 2 missing inmates. And you just saw law enforcement today announcing an increase in reward money tips leading to the arrest of either of these inmates could result in a $50,000 reward. That's made possible because Crime Stoppers is offering $20K, the FBI pledging another $20K, and then the ATF adding $10,000, bringing that combined reward total to $50,000 now for Antoine Massey and Derek Groves. Of course, we'll keep monitoring this story. You may remember police captured 2 men on Monday following a high-speed chase in Texas. Another man found sitting on a beach in Louisiana thanks to an anonymous tip. We're going to take a quick break, and we will bring you the fight between Trump and Harvard when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Natasha Zubas here at NewsNation headquarters. So glad to be with you today. This is NewsNation Now. I want to bring you what's live and happening right now, and Governor Kathy Hochul just stepped up to the podium with an announcement. Let's go ahead and take that live while it's happening.
This station rebuilt. In 2007, there was a plan with the developer to renovate it with a tower on the top. Well, that didn't go anywhere. In 2013, there was another attempt, met by fierce community pushback. As recently as 2019, there was an effort started to bring back the 2013 plan. And none of these proposals managed to achieve what we're doing collectively today. Breaking ground on a new Midtown bus terminal. This is a once in a generation to get it right. And here we are. Because of the dedication of so many people who could believe that this day would come. Now I want to acknowledge my partner in government. And you don't hear this a lot with respect to New York and New Jersey. But we actually like each other. We're both Irish. We're going to have a beer as soon as we leave here. And that's what was missing, perhaps, Phil. But I'm so proud to be here today with you to show your residents that we believe they also deserve more when they come in and to their jobs, to work, to recreate, because they're part of our regional family. And to all the commuters coming in from Orange County and Rockland, you deserve better as well. This bud's for you. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Thank you, Phil. Thank you to Kevin O'Toole, our authority, who's had to overcome so many challenges, and I respect him immensely. Rick Cotton, who comes to me with the most brilliant ideas, and I always say, Rick, you had me at hello. I mean, I want to build. I want to do more. I want to show our audacity, our ambition, to remind people how great we are. And I want to thank you for extraordinary leadership for many, many years. And then who's going to build it? I know who's going to build it. Gary LaBarber and his men and women are going to build it. And our members of Congress who support it. Congressman Jerry Nadler, who believe we could do better as well. Let's give him a round of applause. Deputy Mayor Randy Mastro, representing the city, has joined us here today. And council members, Eric Botcher, Sylvina Brooks Powers, who never gave up on this. And I see Brad Hoylman, the late entry. There you go. Brad Hoylman Seeger, who's been a longtime friend of mine. And all the community board members, if you're part of a community board, raise your hand and thank you for all you do, pushing us to do better, meeting the moment. And all the local businesses and the advocates, this takes not a village, it takes a city, it takes states. And that's why we're here today. And we worked hand in hand with local officials, and get this, you don't hear this every day of the week. We secured unanimous approval through the city's council's land use project. Anybody hear that through the URLA? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well done. We negotiated a $2 billion pilot agreement with the city and the Port Authority, unlocking financing that's finally making this project possible. And we're delivering a project that meets the moment. Transportation that is worthy, this transportation of the greatest city in the world. Because in New York, we don't just talk, we build. Just look what we did not far from it with the Gateway Tunnel. That project was dead on arrival when I first became governor. Everyone said it was impossible. It had gone through countless governors and mayors and presidents. But I said, this must happen. I would not take no for an answer. Teamed up with my partners and said, we can get this done. Work with Governor Murphy. So we rolled up our sleeves. With all the federal leaders and the regional partners, we secured $16 billion to make Gateway become a reality. But you know what's even more exciting to me? As someone who's born and bred in a labor family, that's 100,000 good-paying labor jobs. Same story with the 2nd Avenue subway extension in East Harlem. It was completely stalled when I first became governor. We brought it back to life with $3.4 billion of federal funds. Don't touch our federal funds for the 2nd Avenue subway. If anybody's listening in Washington, it's another fight you don't want to have. We also secured money for the engineering and design of the Interborough Express. How exciting is that? That'll transform how New Yorkers can get from Brooklyn to Queens and vice versa. And we broke ground on the Penn Station Access Project that finally gives the Bronx and Westchester residents that direct line into Penn Station. And now, the Midtown Bus Terminal. Time and time again, I have worked with my extraordinary team to bring projects, legacy projects, that could have happened at any point in our history and should have. But people said they were too hard, just too damn hard. And we made them become a reality. That's what New York deserves. And this terminal sees upwards of 8,000 buses going in and out every single day, serving 200,000 people every weekday. Those are extraordinary numbers. As I said, they're commuters from New Jersey, Rockland, Orange counties, and people from around the world. And the demand is just growing. So we're stepping up today with the Dyer Avenue deckovers. May not sound exciting to a lot of you, deckovers, okay? Believe me, ribbon cuttings are a lot more fun, and I plan to be around when this ribbon cutting is accomplished, a decade from now. You know what? They told me 10 years, Rick, you know I'm going to make you shave off time. I mean, that's just how I operate. Like, yeah, Gary, we can do it sooner than 10 years, right? All right, Gary says we're going to make it happen. We're going to shave off time. That's how we roll here. But we're going to lay the groundwork for a world-class terminal. It's not just any project. It's going to have a gleaming 2.1 million square feet main terminal driver seamless trips for hundreds of people, and alleviate the traffic for this community. This is so important to our residents, and remove the inner city buses from the neighborhood streets. That's why I also want to get this done. This community deserves better. They don't need their kids growing up with idling buses, with all the fumes, making them sick. They deserve better. And we'll also give them what they deserve. 3.5 acres of open green space for recreation. This is going to be transformed. It'll also be a new civic landmark. But when it comes to delivering projects, the Port Authority delivers. And I want to thank them again for everything they've done. We work closely on the JFK Airport, Terminals 1 and 6. We got those going, and creating a world-class experience. So my point is this. Whether you're flying in, taking a bus in, taking a train in, I want everyone to have a wow factor when they come to this city, and to walk away or drive away or go away and say to others, New York has finally met the moment. We are a city, a region, worthy of all the ambition that people imagine around us because we got it done. I'm excited about this project, if you can tell. I'm going to be pushing it hard for accomplishment. But this one is for the community and all of our communities. You've deserved this for a long time. And today, the future has arrived. Congratulations to everybody involved.
And welcome back. I'm Natasha Zubas. So glad to be with you today. This is NewsNation Now. That was Governor Kathy Hochul behind the podium there, breaking ground on a new $10 billion Midtown bus terminal. This project, long overdue. A temporary terminal will be in place in 2028. We're learning more about the timeline there, and then the final terminal will be completed in 2032. We are monitoring right now for the White House press conference starting soon. We have a live look of that right next to me, and also coming up, a former presidential candidate is joining NewsNation to talk about the need for status tests for our presidents after the age of 70. We'll bring all that to you. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back. I'm Natasha Zubas here at NewsNation headquarters. So glad to be with you on this Thursday. You'll remember Ben Carson, a retired neurosurgeon, former Housing and Urban Development Secretary, a one-time presidential candidate. Well, he joined NewsNation's Morning in America to discuss the need for transparency regarding presidents' medical information and mental status. He is telling NewsNation that once a president hits 70 or 75 years old, he believes they should take an annual mental status test. Let's take a listen to that interview.
A brand new poll shows that less than half of Americans believe President Trump or President Biden are forthcoming about their health. According to the YouGov Economist poll published just this week, more than what Americans are saying about his predecessor. Only 31% of Americans believe President Biden was honest about his health issues. Of course, how fit the president is has become an important factor for voters, considering the last two presidents elected were 78 when inaugurated. Joining me now is retired neurosurgeon and former Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Appreciate your time this morning. Scrutiny surrounding presidential health, it ramped up with President Biden. There's no doubt about it. And according to this poll, that dwindling American confidence has trickled over to Trump. Do we need to revamp the way we approach the president's health and the transparency around it, you think?
Well, my sympathy goes out to President Biden. You know, metastatic prostate cancer is no walk in the park, that's for sure. But that's one of the reasons that it tends to be monitored quite well. Once a person reaches 40, they generally get PSAs on a regular basis. And it's not so much the number attributed to that PSA as it is the trend. It can be a very low number, but if it's gradually going up, that is reason for investigation. So the real question here is, was there incompetence on behalf of his medical team, or is there a transparency problem? I suspect the latter, having had medical care at Walter Reed myself when I was in government. They are excellent. No one does a better job. So I don't believe for one moment that they were negligent in the way that they treated him.
Yeah, this isn't somebody that hasn't gone to the doctor in 20 years, right? I mean, this is the president of the United States, and they make those physicals very public. I also wonder, could the prostate cancer be attributable to any of the symptoms that we saw during his time in office? You know, trouble speaking, stumbling upstairs, having a hard time remembering names of people who have worked around him, you know, for years. Do you think those two could be related at all?
Very unlikely that it's related, unless it potentially could be related to treatments that he was getting that have not been disclosed. But it brings up another very important point. Should we be monitoring the mental status of individuals in important positions in government, particularly after they reach a certain age? And
should we? What's your thought on that question that you just posed?
I think we absolutely should. You know, once a person reaches age 70 or 75, they should have an annual mental status test. It doesn't take very long. It's very easy to do. And you can pick up things very quickly. And, you know, nothing against that individual, but they really shouldn't be in decision-making for the whole nation if they're having mental status problems. It's as simple as that.
CNN journalist Jake Tapper making some bold statements about Biden's mental decline and the possible cover-up in his book, Original Sin, calling the scandal Watergate. Do you agree with Jake Tapper there, sir?
Yes, I do agree with him on that particular thing. I mean, when you think about it, to have somebody who's mentally impaired in charge of the nuclear arsenal of our country and making important decisions is critical. And the fact of the matter is he probably wasn't making those critical decisions, which is even more alarming, because that means unelected individuals were making decisions that affect the lives of all the people in this country and potentially the world. That's a very dangerous situation, and we shouldn't let it be brushed under the rug.
I got it in the conversation there, but Dr. Ben Carson, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. Really appreciate it, sir.
That was former HUD Secretary and one-time presidential candidate Ben Carson on NewsNation's advocating for more transparency. He believes once a president hits 70 or 75 years old, they should take an annual mental status test. Meanwhile, the continuing fight between Trump and Harvard. We are bringing you NewsNation's Elizabeth Vargas and Jason Altmaier about the ongoing feud between Harvard University and the Trump administration. And this comes as $200 million in federal contracts from that esteemed university. Let's take a listen to that interview.
So this has devolved into quite a showdown between President Trump and Harvard, and neither side is backing down.
No, it's really interesting because I think you have to, I don't know, separate the politics from the policy, but at least talk about both of them. The politics of this, candidly, are probably pretty good for Donald Trump. I think a lot of people say elite institutions should not be getting federal money at all, no matter what it's for. This wokeism and the anti-Semitism on campus has to end, and Donald Trump is simply doing that. From a policy perspective, and you touched on this in your intro, Elizabeth, but I really do think it's important to underscore. A lot of what's going on here are government-funded research projects that only these big research institutions like Harvard and Princeton and Yale, Stanford can do, right? I mean, you can't just, I'm all in favor of more money going to trade schools. I think we should have been doing that years ago. I think that's a great idea. I just don't think you can say, well, we'll just take all this money, we'll put it over here. What gets lost is there's no other institutions in this country able right now to do this work. I think even if you gave them the money to do this work, to build it and to set up the trials and all that stuff, would take years. Yeah. So I think you just have to acknowledge what's being lost if we do this.
All right. So, Chris, a lot of people look at that endowment of Harvard's $53 billion, and they got the biggest endowment of any university in the world. And they say, why does Harvard need taxpayer dollars? You looked into it. It's a little complicated because most of that endowment consists of donations that are earmarked for specific things. Harvard can't use them.
That's exactly right. Look, Harvard has the biggest endowment of any university in the United States. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for Harvard. They have a $53 billion endowment. That's massive. But what I will say to your point is the vast majority of those gifts that go for that endowment are from individuals or foundations that are very specifically earmarked to be spent on specific things, whether it's the Kennedy School of Government or whatever, to be spent on very specific places. It's not just a general fund, right? I'm not necessarily saying, Elizabeth, that means that they should get $3 billion in federal money. I think that's a worthy debate to have. My only point is, I think rather than saying, why are we giving them this money? They're so woke and stuff. It's like, okay, I understand that. I understand most people probably didn't even know Harvard got any money from the federal government. At the same time, look at what that $3.2 billion is going toward. It is not going toward woke policies. It's going toward researching MS, finding a cure for cancer, building a hadron collider. Do you know what I mean? I'm pulling these things out of thin air, but my point is it's going for research that is not partisan in any meaningful way. So fine if you want to end it, but understand you're ending other programs that my guess is most people would support.
Right, you're some. I have a whole list here because
you know better than me then.
Cancer of all kinds, heart disease. Ozempic, which millions and millions of people are taking right now, was discovered at Harvard. Gene editing was discovered at Harvard, which is now curing several diseases like sickle cell anemia, hemophilia, muscular dystrophy. That was also discovered at Harvard. This would impact a lot of people who might not like Harvard, don't support Harvard and what it stands for, but are benefiting from the research that is happening at Harvard.
And that's exactly the point. My view, Elizabeth, I think we agree on this, so I don't want to speak for you. My view is politics now reduces everything to black and white, good guys and bad guys, evil and good. And the truth of the matter is, most of this stuff, there is some gray area. I am not saying, yes, we should just get unlimited, write a blank check from the federal government to Harvard. Could they cover some of this stuff with the $53 billion endowment? They could. Not every dollar of that $53 billion is sort of earmarked and allocated. At the same time, if they don't think that keeping this money from them will somehow change their quote-unquote woke admission policies. What it's much more likely to do is impact research, particularly on the medical and technological side, that probably benefits society as a whole. It's just we lowest common denominator a lot of stuff in politics, and a lot of nuance winds up getting lost.
Yeah, it sure does. Okay, Chris Cillizza, thank you for wading into the shades of gray on this issue, much as we might want to reduce it to black and white. Great to have you on, my friend. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I want to bring in Jason Altmaier now. He's the president and CEO of Career Education Colleges and University. It represents trade schools around the country. He's also a former Democratic congressman from Pennsylvania who served 3 terms from 2007 to 2013. Jason, great to have you with us. So what could that $3 billion do for trade schools around the nation?
We're not saying that the money has to come from Harvard, but we do think that an investment in career education is good for the country. We hear from employers all across America that there is a shortage of skilled workers. There's certainly a shortage of opportunity for a lot of students in the country that maybe have tried other things and it hasn't worked out. That's what our schools do. They match students looking for opportunity with employers who are looking for skilled workers. And we all benefit when that happens. There's a lot of ways in career education that federal funding could assist students in accessing high quality schools that can get them on the path to success.
Yeah, these are jobs that AI, for example, will never replace. The kinds of jobs we all rely on at some point in our lives: plumbers, elevator repairmen, electricians, mechanics.
When you think about auto mechanics, for example, I think some people have an outdated view of the person underneath the car with the wrench and the screwdriver and the grease dripping on top of them. That's not what these jobs are now.
Nope.
These are high-tech technicians that are working with computers and information technology, aviation technicians. We need welders, we need nurses, truck drivers, cosmetology, culinary, all the rest. And, there's commercial drone applications that you learn in career schools, underwater construction. It's limitless. And we're trying to bring manufacturing back to America. Those are our workers from our schools. And any investment in career education is going to benefit everyone in America.
Trade schools are usually 2 years long, and depending on the specialty, it could be as little as a few months. Are students at trade schools having a hard time paying tuition? Could this money help them?
That's what we would advocate. That the first question is, should money be directed to trade schools, career education? The answer is resoundingly yes. The second question is, how could it most effectively be utilized? And we do think that a good portion of it should just allow students to choose the school of their choice, to help them fund their education, give them access, and allow them to pick the school that suits their life circumstances.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out, enrollment at trade schools in the last few years has gone up. More and more people are turning to trade schools as the way to establish a career.
We finally have moved away from this national narrative that if you don't choose the 4-year path for college, you've somehow chosen a lesser option or it's less significant. I'm glad that we're not having that discussion anymore. People realize these are valuable careers. You can make a sustaining wage after you graduate. You can move up in the jobs that you've chosen, and it's just a great opportunity. So for students that are looking to pursue the trades, many of them are non-traditional students. They come from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds in many cases, and they could use the help to attend these schools, and that's how some of that money could be used. You
spent a lot of time in Congress as a very bipartisan congressman. You were right down the middle in your voting record. I've got to ask you, you said you're not necessarily saying we want Harvard's research money. We would just like some more money. Thank you so much. What do you make of this political fight right now between President Trump and Harvard University?
Well, I want to be clear. We're not saying we want the money. We're saying the students should get the money, and then they can choose the school of their choice in a career program. With regard to what the president is doing with Harvard, I would just point out that Democratic administrations in the past weaponized the tools of the Department of Education to go after politically schools that they didn't like. And in that case, those were our schools. And now there's a different administration, and the same thing is being applied to other types of schools, but the wheels were set in motion by prior administrations. So I would hope that in the future, when there's a new administration at some point, and people might have a different ideological perspective on higher education, that they have learned that it goes both ways, and we're just better off as a country if we look at higher education as a benefit to all of America than a political tool to be weaponized.
Right, and higher education, including both four-year universities and trade schools, which provide an invaluable service as well. Jason Altmaier, great to have you on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
That was an update on the ongoing feud between Harvard and the Trump administration with NewsNation's Elizabeth Vargas. And by the way, Harvard just graduated their 2025 class in the last 45 minutes as all of this is unfolding. Right next to me, you can see preparations underway for the White House press briefing today. We're going to bring you there live as soon as it begins. We're going to take a quick break, and also when we come back, VP J.D. Vance calling on the crypto industry for expanding its involvement in politics. Thanks so much for being here. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Natasha Zuvest, and so glad to be with you on this Thursday, the 29th. This month is flying by. This is NewsNation Now. We are awaiting the White House press briefing live. Any moment, you can see that live stream punched up right next to me right now. But first, we're going to take you to VP J.D. Vance calling on the crypto industry to continue expanding its involvement in politics. In the context here, after spending more than $200 million to boost crypto-friendly candidates in the 2024 election. Let's
Thank you. Thank you all. Well, first of all, I want to thank, please, thank you guys. Take your seats. And, you know, the Secret Service is a little bit nervous because I told them these Bitcoin guys really like guns. But they really like the President and Vice President of the United States, too, so I think we're doing okay. So I first have to thank David Bailey, grateful for everything that you've done for the Bitcoin community. Thanks in particular for what you did for me and the president, helping us get from candidacy to the White House, because we've done, I think, a lot of good in the past 120 days, and I don't think we could have done it without David's support. I want to also thank the Winklevoss brothers, Tyler and Cameron.
A large touchscreen keeps everyone happy. The Subaru Crosstrek. Dog tested, dog approved.
feels like forever ago. It's not even a year ago, where Silicon Valley, people would whisper in private that they were going to support Donald Trump for president. They would talk about the fact the Democrats had gone too crazy. We had to get Gary Gensler the hell out of there, but they weren't quite willing to say, at least not publicly, that they were going to take the big step and support Donald J. Trump. And Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, I think they were some of the first big names in Silicon Valley to take that step, and a whole host of people followed them. So Cameron and Tyler, thank you for that. And of course, I want to thank the good people at Coinbase, the organizers of this event, and everybody who made this incredible event possible. It's great to be here with Bitcoin at 108,000, at least when I checked this morning, and as Vice President of the United States. It's great to be here. Now, you guys know I get to meet a lot of exciting people in my job, but it's been quite a while since I've been to a conference with this level of energy. I mean, hell, you guys came out here at 9 a.m. after a long night, I'm sure, in Las Vegas. You can't do that without a lot of good energy. But I promise I'm not just saying that to juice my own meme coins. But I think it's wrong, actually, to call this just a conference. This isn't a conference of people. This is a movement, and I'm proud to stand with you here today. I think this conference, this movement of people, is where the future of cryptocurrency in this great country gets decided. So let's start by making one thing abundantly clear. That future is going to be decided by the people, by you, not by unelected bureaucrats. Now, as you all probably know, you've got a star-studded lineup here today, including several of my colleagues in the Trump administration. David, Bo, Hester, I know you're all out there. It's great to be among so many friends and allies. So I want to speak for just a few minutes about a few things, and I want to talk a little bit about what we've done in the Trump administration. I want to give you a rundown of what this administration is doing on digital assets policy, but I also want to talk about some of the principles that help guide us as we develop this policy. But before that, I want to speak about why I'm personally optimistic about crypto and what it means for the American people. Now, people ask me why I tend to be bullish on the future of innovation in this country. Now, I spent enough time in Silicon Valley to recognize the difference between good tech, technology that boosts our productivity, makes our lives richer, that grounds us in the real world and complements our day-to-day lives. That's the good technology, but there's also some bad technology out there. And when it comes to crypto, I think the last several years have made it clear that we're talking about genuine, ground-up innovation, one that's already improving the well-being of tens of millions of our fellow citizens. I believe it's 50 million Americans own Bitcoin, and I believe that's going to be 100 million before too long. But it's not just about Bitcoin and about the value that's been generated, the wealth that's been generated by so many millions of our fellow citizens. Through decentralized finance, crypto has transformed how Americans transact with one another. It's expanded access to banking for many who may not otherwise have had it. And every single day, I feel like I see some groundbreaking new use of blockchain tech, whether it's in supply chain management, whether it's in hospitals, or whether it's in changing how we track and store patients' private health records. But for each of these new forward-looking applications, I also feel like there's an incredibly conservative element to crypto technology, and that's as a hedge. Crypto is a hedge against bad policymaking from Washington, no matter what party is in control. It's a hedge against skyrocketing inflation, which has eroded the real savings rate of Americans over the last 4 years. And as you all know well, it's a hedge against a private sector that's increasingly willing to discriminate against consumers on the basis of their basic beliefs, including their politics. That includes, of course, debanking users for Second Amendment advocacy or for ties to the first Trump administration. In Canada, the government did the same to kill those big truck driver protests in 2022. Less than a week later, they succeeded. The protests were over. But maybe most importantly, I see crypto as a hedge against one of the most dangerous trends in the digital era in both the public and private sectors. And that's of elites who, rather than innovate themselves, prefer to simply take over and co-opt cutting-edge technologies to assert their control over other people. And I know we believe this in this room. That's not Bitcoin. It'll never be Bitcoin, and you guys are going to make sure that happens. But as you know, there's a new sheriff in town because after 4 years of mistreatment and outright hostility led by Democrat regulators, lawmakers in this country have a choice. Will we lead our nation into a future of financial sovereignty, of innovation, and of prosperity, or will we let unelected bureaucrats and foreign competitors write the rules for us? And I'm here today to say loud and clear, with President Trump, crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House. In our administration, we understand the full potential of the digital assets industry, not just as an investment, not just as a flashy technology, but as a symbol and driver of personal liberty for all our citizens. And we are dedicated to seeing that promise fulfilled. The way that we see it, the people in this room are the digital pioneers of the American economy. And that's why our administration is doing something a little unusual in Washington. We're listening to all of you as you blaze the trail of innovation. The innovators in this room are making people's lives better. You're pushing boundaries and solving problems, injecting unprecedented transparency into how we do commerce. And the way we see it, you all deserve a similar level of transparency and clarity. And most of all, you deserve respect and support from your government, not bureaucrats trying to tear you down. Now that means a few substantive concrete steps, and of course the first and most important of those steps is straightforward. We've got to clean up the wreckage that the last administration left us, and since day one, that is exactly what we've been trying to do. Our administration, we prioritize eliminating the rules, the red tape, and the lawfare that we saw aimed at crypto by our predecessors. We're ending the weaponization of federal regulations against this community. To put it simply, Operation Choke Point 2.0 is dead, and it's not coming back under the Trump administration. And by the way, it's crazy that was ever even controversial, the idea of using the regulatory power of the government to crush an industry and to crush people who espoused a view that you didn't like. It's crazy, but let my words today serve as Operation Choke Point. Let me serve as its obituary. Now this is my vow to every single person here. You will never see this administration trying to handicap your community or diminish the impact it's had on the economy. Instead, we reject the Biden administration's legacy of death by 1,000 enforcement actions. We reject regulators. Maybe the most important thing that we did for this community, we reject regulators and we fired Gary Gensler, and we're going to fire everybody like him. And we know that people like Gary Gensler, the game that they played is that under the pretense of consumer protection, they attacked every single our financial markets, and that is over. America. I grew up in a working class family. I believe that America is a place where anyone should be able to make a fortune, no matter where you grew up, what degree you may or may not have. And in recent years, I'm hard-pressed to think of a better place to do than right here in the digital assets industry. Now, our second substantive step is we're trying to create a clear, pro-growth legal framework for stablecoins in this country. And I know we've got some solid allies in Congress. Is Cynthia Loomis out there today, or did she already go home? Well, you know, I was supposed to have dinner last night with Cynthia Loomis. We had a little event yesterday, and I looked around, I said, where the hell is Cynthia Loomis? And somebody said, well, she's got a dinner she had to go to. And I said, I'm the vice president. Unless she's having dinner with the president, Cynthia does not have an excuse to skip this event. But we love Cynthia, and I know.
That was VP J.D. Vance vowing to champion the crypto industry, calling on the industry to continue expanding its involvement in politics after it spent more than $200 million to boost crypto-friendly candidates in 2024. The White House press briefing live when we come back. The White House press briefing is under
our country and finally ending the United States of America from being ripped off. These judges are threatening to undermine the credibility of the United States on the world stage. The administration has already filed an emergency motion for a stay pending appeal and an immediate administrative stay to strike down this egregious decision. But ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country. With Congress returning next week, it's critical that Senate Republicans maintain the momentum and quickly pass the One Big Beautiful Bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill will truly make America safe and prosperous. The One Big Beautiful Bill includes the largest border security investment ever. That's why the law enforcement groups are lining up to encourage its swift passage. The National Fraternal Order of Police, the largest police union in the country, just endorsed key provisions of the bill. The FOP president announced their strong support, saying the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is more than legislation. It is a promise kept to the public safety officers across the country and a bold step toward an economy that respects, rewards, and uplifts the people who keep it safe. And the National Border Patrol Council, which represents nearly 20,000 Border Patrol agents, hailed the legislation as well. The group's president said this legislation provides a once-in-a-generation investment in the border security of our great country and will make America safer. The One Big Beautiful Bill will guarantee we can permanently have the safest, strongest, and most secure immigration system in American history. I also want to take the opportunity to debunk some false claims that have been circulating in the press about this bill. The blatantly wrong claim that the One Big Beautiful Bill increases the deficit is based on the Congressional Budget Office and other scorekeepers who use shoddy assumptions and have historically been terrible at forecasting across Democrat and Republican administrations alike. For example, just before Congress enacted the original Trump tax cuts at the end of 2017, the same CBO projected that growth would average a mere 1.9% over the next 10 years. However, by 2019, actual growth had surged to 3.4% once the Trump tax cuts went into effect, exceeding the CBO forecast by nearly 2 full percentage points. The CBO's latest forecast makes the same anemic growth assumptions as they did in 2017, missing the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill. The CBO assumes long-term GDP growth of an anemic 1.8%, and that is absurd. The American economy is going to boom like never before after the One Big Beautiful Bill is passed. The largest middle-class tax cut in history, massive deregulation, and the most aggressive domestic energy exploration ever will fuel small businesses, further boost private investment, increase workers' wages, and supercharge economic growth. The Council of Economic Advisors has factored in the effects of all these pro-growth policies and estimated in their own analysis that growth will average 3% in the long run after the One Big Beautiful Bill is passed, which is nearly double the ridiculous CBO projection. This higher growth would result in $4.1 trillion in additional revenue over the next 10 years. Between the common sense spending reforms contained in the One Big Beautiful Bill and the robust economic growth that will be generated as a result of it, there will be no increase to the deficit. The same analysis from the CEA shows just how this historic package will unleash prosperity and ignite a blue-collar boom across America. But if the radical Democrats get their way and the One Big Beautiful Bill does not pass, Americans will face a whopping $4 trillion tax hike. This is unacceptable to President Trump. President Trump will not allow Democrats to massively raise Americans' taxes. Senate Republicans must get this bill passed. Failure is not an option. The American people are counting on Republicans to deliver. In other news, despite all the doom casting from the media, Americans are growing more and more optimistic about the economy under this president. Consumer confidence surged in May with the biggest monthly jump in 4 years, smashing expectations. According to the release from the Consumer Confidence Index, the increase in confidence was broad-based across all age groups, income groups, and political affiliations. Our country is clearly heading in the right direction under President Trump's bold leadership. For the first time in history of Rasmussen polling, a majority of Americans believe the country is on the right track. It's unsurprising because the president is fulfilling the promises he made to the American people. Here in our new media seat today, we have the editor-in-chief of The Federalist, Molly Hemingway. The Federalist is led by Molly and Sean Davis and provides fearless journalism and coverage of politics and culture to millions of readers all over the world. Thank you for being here, Molly, and why don't you please kick us off?
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
In the first Trump administration, there was an effort to stymie the agenda of Trump through the Russia collusion hoax perpetuated by many people in the media, including some people seated here, or the media outlets they represent, and other Democrats as well. The second Trump administration, to reference what you said at the beginning, seems to be subject to an effort to stymie the agenda using rogue lower court judges. You mentioned that the Supreme Court could and should do something to rein in these lower court judges. Also, Congress could do something about it, but they don't seem terribly interested in it. It also seems there's not much of an actual coordinated effort from this White House to take and tackle this effort from judges, Democrats and other people using these judges to stymie the agenda. Is there an actual effort by this White House to tackle this issue in a comprehensive way, and if so, what is it?
There is an effort by this administration to tackle these rogue judges and the injunctions and the blockades that we have faced in our broken judicial system in every case. I mean, we have seen time and time again these lower district court judges ruling against this administration and the president's basic executive authority and powers. And this administration is fighting every single one of those battles in court, including already the block that came down from the tariff court, the IEPA court last night. And as on my way out here to the briefing room, I understand that there was another district court judge right here in Washington, D.C., who ruled against the president's tariff power. And I will get to the heart of your question, and I'm glad that we are addressing this in the room today, because nationwide injunctions ordered against the first Trump administration, Trump 1.0, account for more than half of the injunctions issued in this country since 1963. And President Trump had more injunctions in one full month of office in February than Joe Biden had in 3 years. And let me roll through some of these radical injunctions to paint the picture for the American people at home. These are not just talking points. These are real judges in the court of law who are trying to block the president's power and the policies that he was elected to enact. For example, a court ordered the Trump administration to return already deported terrorist aliens back to the United States. A court has ruled the Trump administration can't even temporarily pause our refugee programs. Courts prohibited the Trump administration from eliminating federal funding for child transgender surgery and mutilation, a practice that the American people overwhelmingly reject. A court also held that the Trump administration could not ban people experiencing gender dysphoria or mental health issues from serving in the military. Ridiculous. Courts prohibited the removal of transgender women from women's prisons despite potential physical harm to real women in those prisons, biological women. A Northern District of California judge issued an absurd ruling that the president cannot fire people within the executive branch without Congress passing a bill, even though Congress has expressly authorized the president through the Office of Personnel Management to authorize reductions in force across agencies. A court also ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of already fired employees in several cases. A federal judge blocked the Trump administration from defunding the Department of Education, another signature campaign promise that this president has the power to implement. Courts ordered the Trump administration could not eliminate funding for illegal DEI programs, hence the word illegal. These are illegal programs to begin with, and now the courts are trying to say this president can't roll them back. And a district court judge prohibited the president from issuing any categorical funding freezes. And then another court ordered on top of that the administration makes $2 billion of payments in 36 hours. These are just a few of the ridiculous orders that we have seen from lower district court judges every day, and we hope that the Supreme Court will weigh in and rein them in.
But White House advisor Stephen Miller says it's judicial tyranny. Some people are calling it a judicial coup. You're saying you're responding to each and every one of these actions, efforts by these judges to delay or thwart the implemented agenda. But is there going to be anything more than that, or is it just going to let this operation continue, even though it could delay everything for years until the presidency is over?
The administration is operating under the directive given to from the president that we need to comply with the court's orders. He's made that very clear, but we're going to fight them in court, and we're going to win on the merits of these cases because we know we are acting within the president's legal and executive authorities. And thanks for being here. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Question on tariffs, but first actually some foreign policy news, some breaking news. Some local Israeli media is reporting that Prime Minister Netanyahu told hostage families that he's accepted a 60-day truce offer. So can you confirm, have Israel and Hamas agreed to a truce?
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. I won't comment further as we are in the midst of this right now.
So to be clear, you don't know if Hamas has accepted it yet?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that becomes case and this ceasefire goes into effect, you'll hear it directly from myself, the president, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
On tariffs, Kevin Hassett earlier this morning, he brushed off a legal ruling and called it a hiccup, and he said that trade deal negotiations would continue. Why would other countries continue these trade deal negotiations given the ruling?
Because other countries around the world have faith in the negotiator-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump. And they also probably see how ridiculous this ruling is, and they understand that the administration is going to win, and we intend to win. We already filed an emergency appeal. We expect to fight this battle all the way to the Supreme Court. These other countries should also know, and they do know, that the president reserves other tariff authorities, Section 232, for example, to ensure that America's interests are being restored around the world. But I can confirm that our ambassador for trade, Jamison Greer, already heard from countries around the world this morning who said they intend to continue with these negotiations. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. So many of the president's plans right now are being blocked by courts. If the courts are going to be the ones who are shaping policy, Does the president wish he would have just become a judge instead?
I think the president would take this job over being a judge, and certainly the president is acting within his authority. He wishes judges would do the same.
But so the courts are basically telling you guys they think that the White House's policies, the president's policies, are in some way against the law. So why can't President Trump ask the Republicans that control the House and the Republicans that control the Senate just to make a new law?
Well, these laws have already been granted to the president by the Constitution and by laws that have been previously passed. I'll give you another example. For instance, we've been blocked in court for the revocation of visas from individuals who have the privilege of studying in the United States of America. Secretary of State Rubio has simply used his authority to revoke those visas, and we've seen the courts try to block that. So if these judges want to be the Secretary of State or they want to be the president, they can run for office themselves. It should be the other way around. But all of the actions the president has taken rely on legal authorities that have already been granted to him by our nation's existing laws.
And on a different topic, there are some folks in President Biden's inner circle who are now in talks with Republicans in Congress to give interviews about how they may have handled President Biden's decline. Is the president satisfied with aides only sitting for these transcribed interviews, or would he also like to see some kind of testimony from the former First Lady, Dr. Biden?
I think, frankly, the former First Lady should certainly speak up about what she saw in regards to her husband and when she saw it and what she knew, because I think anybody looking, again, at the videos and photo evidence of Joe Biden with your own eyes and a little bit of common sense can see this was a clear cover-up. And Jill Biden was certainly complicit in that cover-up. There's documentation, video evidence of her clearly shielding her husband away from the cameras. They were just on The View last week. She was saying everything is fine. She's still lying to the American people. She still thinks the American public are so stupid that they're going to believe her lies. And frankly, it's insulting, and she needs to answer for it. Ouija.
Caroline. President Trump was asked what he thought about Elon Musk's claim that the big, beautiful bill increases the budget deficit and undermines the work of DOJ. And the president didn't actually comment on those remarks. He just talked about the need to support the bill. So what does the president think about what Elon Musk said?
Well, the president is very proud of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and he wants to see it pass. He wants the Senate to get to work on it and send it to his desk as quickly as possible. Of course, as you know, Elon Musk announced last night his departure as an official special government employee from the Trump administration. We thank him for his service. We thank him for getting DOJ off of the ground, and the efforts to cut waste, fraud, and abuse will continue.
So he doesn't have any comment about Musk saying it adds to the deficit and it undermines all his work?
The president commented on this. I commented on it. I told you that this bill saves $1.6 trillion according to the Council of Economic Advisors and the analyses that the president believes in. So he gave a comment. I gave a comment. Just because you don't like that comment doesn't mean it's not a comment. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Back on trade, I know you said the White House is going to fight this ruling in court. Is the administration actively reviewing other avenues, other options to carry out the president's trade policy?
The president's trade policy will continue. We will comply with the court orders, but yes, the president has other legal authorities where he can implement tariffs. However, it does not dispute the fact that the president was right to declare a national emergency when it came to fentanyl and when it came to our crippling deficits and the lack of critical supply chains here at home. That is the reasoning for the president's tariffs. And the court didn't dispute those facts, by the way. And there have been other courts that have reaffirmed the president's position. In fact, a ruling in federal court earlier this month shows that the administration is in the right, said we will win on appeal. A federal district judge in Florida ruled that IEEPA, in fact, does grant the president the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs. And 20 years ago, I will add, they are not a court, the New York Times editorial board responded to the January 2005 trade deficit of $58.3 billion by writing an editorial entitled Dangerous. And since then, our trade deficit has more than doubled. The U.S. trade deficit in January totaled a whopping $131.4. People on both sides of the aisle, pundits, lawyers, legal scholars, politicians have all agreed that it is a national emergency, our trade deficits and our lack of critical supply chains here at home. It's just President Trump was the first president to actually act on it, to restore that wealth and that prosperity to the United States of America. And it's very unfortunate that the courts are now blocking his attempts to do that.
Has the administration then reached the point where you are actually asking your economic advisors to start reviewing other avenues to implement the president's trade policy, or do you want to just see this legal process take place for now?
We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are doing both. Josh.
The Fed says the president met with the Fed chair early out of that meeting. The Fed also says that they discussed the economy. I imagine the president might have shared views on rates as well, but what can you share with us?
I can share with you that we saw, the president and I both saw the statement that the Fed put out after the meeting. That statement is correct. However, the president did say that he believes the Fed chair is making a mistake by not lowering interest rates, which is putting us at an economic disadvantage to China and other countries. And the president's been very vocal about that, both publicly and now I can reveal privately as well.
Did he speak at all about his plans for that position, but whether he would seek to move Jay Powell out of that position or keep him in until his term ends?
No.
Okay. Ask very quickly on the tariff question. You mentioned Section 232 earlier. Are you suggesting that you might sort of speed up some of the existing 232 investigations? Or are you talking potentially using 232 as a replacement power if this ruling doesn't go your way? Of course, you hope it does.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just simply stating the fact that the president has other legal authorities he can use to implement tariffs, and the administration is willing to use those. As you know, we already have applied Section 232 tariffs on specific industries. Yeah, thank you.
President Trump said that he needed 1.5 to 2 weeks to determine whether or not he believed Vladimir Putin wanted peace. He has been in office now for 4 months. What does he believe is going to happen in the next 1.5 to 2 weeks that would change his opinion?
Well, it is my understanding and it is our hope that Russia and Ukraine will engage in direct talks and negotiations next week in Istanbul, and we believe that meeting is going to take place, and that is a meeting the president encouraged and urged for these two sides to come together and negotiate directly. And the president has been clear from the very beginning of this conflict that he wants to see this conflict solved on the negotiating table, not on the battlefield, and he's told that to both leaders, again, both publicly and privately. So hopefully next week it will move the ball forward in this.
Is the United States going to participate in those conversations?
We will let you know if the president plans to send a representative. I'm not tracking that at this time. Kelly in the back.
Thanks, Caroline.
Sure.
I wanted to just clarify once and for all the Qatari jet, the sale, or the gift, because the Qatari government is asking the U.S. to clarify that the jet's pending transfer was initiated by the Trump administration. So is this something that the White House is going to do?
The amount of questions we've received, and we've been incredibly clear, and I have answered this, the president has answered this, the Department of Defense has answered this. This is a government-to-government gift transfer from the Qataris to the Department of Defense, to the United States Air Force. It is now in their hands, and for further details on where that stands, I would defer you to the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. I have nothing more for you on that. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions, one on Big Beautiful Bill, one on immigration.
Sure.
Yesterday, Trump said, we will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. Wondering if you could, share any specifics on that. And on immigration, do you know how many illegal migrants have taken Trump's voucher program so far and have deported themselves?
I believe it's in the thousands of those who have chosen the easier route of self-deportation, and we certainly encourage all illegal aliens who are present within our homeland to take that option. It's a much more pleasant option than being deported, and we will deport you if you're here illegally. That's our intention. As for the first question, what the president was speaking about is how this is a great bill. However, it has come as a result of a hard negotiation. It's difficult to get things done on Capitol Hill, but thanks to President Trump, this bill is moving in the right direction. And thanks to House Republicans and the leadership over there as well, who did a great job mediating both sides of the caucus to move this bill to the Senate. And now the president, again, has told his friends on the Senate side and is already engaged in those conversations to get that bill back to his desk as soon as possible. Sure.
Has this administration been briefed about the incident that happened in Gaza on Tuesday during the rollout of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution of aid to Palestinians there? And should there be a ceasefire, will this administration continue to rely on this foundation for the distribution of aid to civilians?
Are you referring, what incident are you referring to?
Tuesday,
when the aid was rolled out to Gaza for the first time in many months, and meals and food was given to hungry people thanks to President Trump. Yes, we were briefed on that plan. The president was the reason that that aid went into Gaza, and he got the Israelis to support that plan. And I would add that the previous administration rejected such a plan to ensure that these starving and devastated people in the Gaza Strip were given humanitarian aid and assistance. And it was the previous administration that tried to build this pier, if you all remember it. It was brought to my attention this morning, and I thought that's a good point. Why don't I bring that up? Because there's been so much criticism. In fact, it was on the front page of a newspaper this morning about the criticism for this president having a humanitarian heart and giving people badly needed food and supplies. Nobody wanted to talk about how the previous administration failed in that endeavor. They built this pier that cost $230 million. It lasted about 20 days, and more than 60 U.S. service members were injured, as a part of this floating aid pier that did nothing for the people of Gaza. The president is opening up his humanitarian heart to get aid into the region while his team simultaneously negotiates a ceasefire and the return of all hostages. We are moving the ball forward in a positive direction for all people. The president wants to see peace for all people. Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Caroline. A notice investigation found that the Hallmark Maha Commission report that was released last week cites studies that appear to not exist. We know that because, in part, we reached out to some of the listed authors who said that they didn't write the studies cited. So I want to ask, does the White House have confidence that the information coming from HHS can be trusted?
Yes, we have complete confidence in Secretary Kennedy and his team at HHS. I understand there were some formatting issues with the Maha report that are being addressed, and the report will be updated, but it does not negate the substance of the report, which, as you know, is one of the most transformative health reports that has ever been released by the federal government and is backed on good science that has never been recognized by the federal government.
Follow-up, can you talk about what tools or research goes into production of these kinds of reports? For instance, is it AI that's used to put together these reports now?
I can't speak to that. I would defer you to the Department of Health and Human Services. What I know is just what I told you. Lindsay.
Many small businesses that we've talked to since this has been in place have said what would really help them is a long-term plan so that they can catch up. In light of what's happened now, this trade war with the courts, how will that impact this 90-day window? Will you guys be adjusting that? And how can you help relieve some of these small businesses?
Well, I would say nobody understands the needs of business owners, and nobody has the backs of our small business community more than President Donald J. Trump. He believes, I've heard him talk about this with small business owners himself, that small businesses are truly the backbone of our American economy. And that's why the president is supporting the One Big Beautiful Bill. So for those you spoke to who are asking for a long-term plan, big tax cuts are coming their way. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime for their workers, more money in their pockets. Their bottom lines will be larger. They can pay their people more. Wages are going to go up. Inflation will continue to come down. We've already seen energy prices plummeting as a result of this president's economic and energy agenda that he has been implementing across the federal government, reducing burdensome regulation. All of that is good news for small business owners across the country. That's why they strongly support the president, and that's the Trump economic plan that is underway. And again, you're emphasizing, I believe, the need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, and the president wants to see that happen. Sure.
Will you still work within that 90-day window for these trade negotiations? Does that still stand?
Again, as far as we're concerned, our trade agenda is moving forward, and we've already heard from countries around the world today who will continue to negotiate in good faith with the United States so we can cut good trade deals on behalf of the American people, and we fully expect to win this case in court. Sure.
On Golden Dome, the president put out $61 billion. How did he arrive at that? Is that the number it will cost to protect Canada, and is it negotiable, or where did it come from?
I can certainly ask the president, and I can check in with our research team, and we'll get you the facts on that number. But the Golden Dome is certainly a significant investment in our nation's national security and homeland security to protect Americans, all of you in this room, from future threats.
Have the Canadians been talking in good faith about paying to be in it? I know they've expressed some interest.
Well, the president has certainly expressed to the Canadians how we are essentially subsidizing their national defense. He brought it up in his meeting with their new leader here, and as you know, we'll be traveling to Canada next month for the G7, so I expect that topic of discussion to come up on that trip as well. Sure.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. There was a May Day USA rally in Seattle that happened over the weekend that devolved into some protests and riots. The Seattle Mayor Harrell said that it was a far-right rally held here to provoke a reaction by promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values, which he defined as LGBT values. I know the FBI is looking into this, but has the president reached out to the mayor at all, asked him to apologize for this, and is this something that the administration would consider an example of anti-Christian bias?
I'm not aware of that case. I know the FBI is looking into it, but I'm not aware of any phone calls the president may or may not have made to the mayor of that city.
And then on Doge, we know that Elon Musk is leaving. Do you have an updated leadership structure for who is leading the group? Is Russ Vought involved? And what is its new mission now, if any?
Well, the entire cabinet is involved, and I spoke to the president about it this morning, and the entire cabinet understands the need to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse, and each cabinet secretary at their respective agencies is committed to that. That's why they were working hand in hand with Elon Musk, and they'll continue to work with the respective Doge employees who have onboarded as political appointees at all of these agencies. So surely the mission of Doge will continue, and many Doge employees are now political appointees and employees of our government, and to the best of my knowledge, all of them intend to stay and continue this important work.
Is there a Doge leader taking the place of Mr. Musk?
Well, again, the Doge leaders are each and every member of the president's cabinet and the president himself, who is wholeheartedly committed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from our government. Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. There's conflicting reports out of the Middle East right now. Saudi television network Al Arabia is saying that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 60-day ceasefire. Sources with Hamas are saying that has not been agreed to. If and when that does happen, will we expect to hear something from President Trump announcing that?
As I said earlier, yes, indeed. If there is an announcement to be made, it will come from the White House, the president, myself, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
Caroline, one big beautiful bill. The president says he's not happy with all aspects of it. What changes would he like to see be made, and can this bill be both big and beautiful?
It is a one name rings true, and the president, as I said, is currently working with his friends in the Senate who have some recommendations for the bill. Those negotiations and discussions are continuing, but the president's ultimate priority is to get this bill back to his desk for signature. And the president's priorities in this bill are non-negotiable in terms of the tax priorities he wants to see and the large tax cuts in the border investments that are currently in this bill. He is not going to allow them to go away for the American people. Sure, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about, has the president spoken to any of these foreign leaders about these agreements that have been reached, specifically the case of the United Kingdom that already has an agreement in place after this decision of the court in New York?
Has the president talked to foreign leaders about what?
About the court decision in New York.
Which court decision in New York?
The trade court.
Oh, the trade court decision. He did speak to the leader of Japan this morning, and he said that was a very good call and a good discussion. And as I said, the president's cabinet, Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, and Ambassador Jameson Greer have all been in touch with their counterparts in countries around the world to let them know the United States will still be at the negotiating table, and we still expect countries around the world to treat us fairly. Again, I will just close by saying that how ridiculous it is that we have been ripped off. Our middle class has been hollowed out. Our manufacturing base has left and gone overseas. Jobs have been offshored. And now no court did anything about that. No court did anything about hundreds of thousands of people being put out of work, about thousands of factories being closed down, about our deficits going to dangerous levels, as the New York Times has said. But now a court is trying to stop a president from trying to correct those wrongs of the past. And this administration will continue to do that. It's a promise the president made to the American people, and it's a promise they elected him on. We will win this battle in court, and the president will implement his America First trade policies. Thank you, everyone.
Is the U.S. Steel situation tomorrow to speak?
I can tell you the president greatly looks forward to going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he will discuss this historic deal and discuss American jobs and American steel, and we hope to see you all there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Caroline.
And you were watching the White House press briefing live there. It started right off the bat with the issue after a U.S. trade court ruled that Trump had overstepped his authority by invoking an emergency law to impose those sweeping tariffs on almost every nation. Caroline Levitt right off the bat saying, quote, 3 judges brazenly abused their judicial power and usurped the president. The president has authority to impose these tariffs. The courts should have no role here, end quote. She said of the big, beautiful bill, failure is not an option. And you heard our Nation correspondent Kelly Meyer asking about the plane from Qatar. Levitt saying this is a government transfer, a gift to the Air Force, referring additional questions to the Department of Defense. When we come back, a conversation with News Nation's Chris Cuomo over how extremists overseas are grooming young Americans over the internet and creating threats here at home. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back, and do want to bring you this conversation with News Nation's Chris Cuomo, discussing how extremists overseas are grooming young Americans over the internet and creating threats here at home. Let's take a listen to that.
It's good to have you both. Tracy, the problem is those, in a very perverse way, were the good old days when you knew who you were dealing with and they were only too happy to tell you and take credit for things and launch operations. Now it's this kind of free-for-all online that I see as a common thread with a lot of the radical violence we've seen over the last few years. How do you explain the shift from what you were part of in going after that bastard to what we're dealing with today at home?
Well, thank you for having me, Chris, and I agree with you. You're absolutely right. Those were, I guess, the good old days when we knew exactly who our enemy was, and that enemy was over there, if you will. We didn't have this spread. I mean, it was here, but we didn't have this rampant spread, if you will, of this radical ideology here in the U.S. We knew that our enemy was coming from overseas. The internet existed, but it really wasn't being used to conduct radicalization. And that, in my opinion, is the number one problem, as well as these individuals who are spewing this hatred basically being allowed to have these platforms, because I believe that they are crossing over a line of protected hate speech. And that in turn is also creating this self-radicalization, if you will, that's really in line with Al-Qaeda. These individuals don't see themselves as members of Al-Qaeda, but the reality is those are the ideas that they are adopting and that they are normalizing.
Aaron, what do you do? The kids are on the phones all the time. We know that we have a generation that is uniquely sensitive to appropriating oppression. They're looking for a cause, and they have been conditioned 100 different ways to hate the country in one way or another. What does that spell, and what do we do about it?
So, Chris, let me tell you where I'm at with all this. I think you nailed it on the head with your monologue when you talked about you've got everyone on every different side looking to connect with something. And coming from the intelligence world, ideology is a big factor when we're targeting assets. I'm talking about Israel specifically, where I was trained. But I want to talk about the main engine of what's driving this. And it's not the 20 months of protests on the campus. I want to talk about the driver and what we're seeing globally from Seattle to Italy now to France and Cannes. And the byproduct and what's happened here is probably the largest domestic security threat in the history of this country. Let me tell you what I mean. Coordinated psychological warfare. Chris, this is called fifth generation warfare, and there's no uniforms. There's no borders and there's no bullets. The battlefield is digital and the weapon is influence. And I want to explain how it works. The targets in the minds of the youth is what America's enemies are going after. The DC shooter did not meet a Hamas recruiter, Chris, in some dark alley. He met an algorithm. And America's enemies have mastered the art of this narrative warfare. And they have embedded millions of bots driven across TikTok and Reddit and X and fringe foreign groups to inject this division. This is on both sides. I don't want to talk about the specific countries because I don't want to get political, but I think you know where I'm leaning. And the radicalization has hit both ends of the spectrum, which you talked about in your monologue very beautifully. The piece here specifically is called bot amplification. And armies, Chris, millions are flooding the comment sections and pushing these fringe narratives into trending status through this propaganda. And not just spreading messages, but to literally boost and groom engagement metrics that tell our algorithm here in the United States, show this to more people.
And that was part of a conversation with News Nation's Chris Cuomo about the risk for homegrown terror. A counterterrorism expert, Aaron Cohen, there saying the battlefield is clearly digital. You can watch that full interview on News Nation's YouTube channel right now. It has been a jam-packed day today. We brought you live to the ground in New Orleans. The reward money increased to $50,000 per captured inmate now, as two men still remain on the run after escaping almost 2 weeks ago. We covered politics, of course, an update on the ongoing feud between Harvard University and the Trump administration. We saw former presidential candidate Ben Carson calling for mental status checks for presidents over 70 years old. And then there was J.D. Vance pledging support for the so-called crypto movement, urging that industry to continue expanding its role in politics after it did pour millions of dollars into 2024 candidates. We brought you live to the White House press briefing just a few minutes ago, where Caroline Leavitt hit back after courts ruled Trump had overstepped with his sweeping tariffs. You heard her also say that the big, beautiful bill of that bill failure is not an option. My name again is Natasha Zuves. It is a pleasure as always to be with you here on News Nation Now. Our coverage continues now on newsnationnow.com, and you can go to joinnn.com. Just put in your zip code there, find out exactly how to watch our main channel wherever you are. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, stay well.
We could also see sooner rather than later in somewhere like Colorado or these other areas that you're looking that might have these similar issues?
Yeah, so there's not one telecom company that controls the whole country. So what you'll see is, I think,